Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to reconvene our 2024 budget meeting. Moving on the agenda, we're at item 4.2, 2024 operating budget. CEO Panasic, is there anything you'd like to say to lead us off?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we'll be going through in much of the same format as we did yesterday. We did want to provide some budget projections, just to keep in mind that those are very preliminary. The capital budget to some degree will affect that, as well as a lot of other factors. So we did want to provide some context around talking about some of these operational changes, but keep in mind those are very likely to change come November. On page 142 of the package, we've included alongside the operational business cases. We've provided a list among the check marks that indicate administrative recommendations. The one change is that under infrastructure vehicles, lease of town vehicles, enterprise fleet management, that was a error on our part. That one is not recommended, and that is a 2025 item that's being proposed. So just for everybody's knowledge. Other than that, if we're okay, I could pick it off with the first one.
Sorry, which one did you say was not
Sorry.
administrative priority?
On page 142 under infrastructure services, vehicles, lease of town vehicles, enterprise fleet management.
Okay. Thank you. Go to Councillor Taylor just before you lead off, if that's okay. Councillor Taylor.
When are the good news items coming? You've done a very thorough job of giving us the bad news. But obviously there's some good news coming. Because 12.2% tax increase just isn't going to be workable. And we haven't even looked at the civic agencies. So there's downward pressures, okay, but there's upward pressures. So when do we get the good news? It's not all bad news.
To the chair, what good news are you looking for?
Well, year to year in the budget, they'll give us the upward budget pressures, they'll give us the downward budget pressures, and they kind of balance each other out, and then we end up with a number that's not so unmanageable.
So I can say just generally, there are very little downward pressures on budgets year over year, right? We've kept our budget very consistent, not in pace with inflation. That's kind of compounded. That's a big part of it. But those pressures, this year there are a lot of pressures. Insurance, for example, is going up 20%. Costs are increasing quite a bit. Again, those are projections early on in the year that we wanted to provide context. Those aren't the final numbers, but they are. At least in August, those were as accurate as the projections as we could find.
If these are consistent with inflation, this says 5.4. Well, what inflation rate are you using? And I'm talking like municipal inflation. So that's not groceries, that's like fuel, wages, power, electricity, and we know wages is 2%. So what number are we using for all the rest of them? What's the inflation or municipal inflation rate? So
when it comes to contracted services, wages is a big one because you have merit and you have COLA. When it comes to contracted services, there was an inflationary estimate applied there. There was also an inflationary estimate provided to certain items on which other line items?
So we applied a 3.9% inflation for any of the 5 accounts. So the goods and services, where the fuel is, where the electricity is, where those types of items are paid from. That was done at 3.9%, which was average, the 11-year average for the inflation rate for. Now, as CEO Panasic said, we have yet in the coming week to sit down, himself, myself, and the department director, to go line by line through those items where I have arbitrarily applied this rate to confirm that that is consistent and correct, and if it's not, it will be reduced downwards. The only reason that this was tied to, or these numbers were tied to, a potential tax rate was just to provide an anchor for each other. Because quite often that is the question is if we approve this, what's the effect on taxation? Civic agencies have been included in these numbers with the original request, not the council approved request. We have civic agencies coming to council as a separate item on the November 14th agenda. So that will be at the time that council approves the civic agencies. Also coming on the 14th of November will be the council contingency amount as well as the community grant amount to be put in. So there's a lot of work that is going to happen in the 10 days following these two meetings that we've had for, as I said, myself, CAO and the department director to go through line by line and ensure that we have captured only municipal inflation, because all of the inflation doesn't apply to us, and we realize that. We also applied a slight inflationary amount under the contracted services. Again, it was done at 1.9% because potentially there's more control on those lines than we can control power that is utilized in our facilities. And wages have also been applied through, it came out at a higher percentage, but in addition to the 2% COLA, there's any merit increases, and we have received notification of some of our benefit plans having double-digit increases this year. So again, we put all these numbers in to the best that we could project in August. And the next 10 days will be in between now and the next committee meeting is when we'll be doing the work of going through line by line and really talking about all of them in detail. Prior year when we did the budget, myself with you, I felt we put a lot of information into that one weekend, and speaking on behalf of administration, at times it felt a little rushed and we were maybe pushing for decision. So we're trying to stretch it out a little bit more this year and provide you the information in segments so we can have good discussion on it rather than forcing it all into one weekend. So you will see changes in these numbers, and I'm hoping we can find some good news to bring forward.
And one more general question, if I could. I don't quite understand these operational business cases. Like some of them don't seem to be things we can say no to. So I've never been given options like electrical costs or sand and gravel for the roads presented as a yes or no option. It strikes me as being almost akin to saying that we're going to shut off the electricity or we're not going to plow the roads. That's hardly an option. Maybe I'm misinterpreting it. Are these really optional?
Through the chair of council, there is an option there to not good options, but yes or no. But our direction from council that we've kept is that increases that amount to a certain number, we would bring that forward to council. And it may not be it's necessarily, a good debate on whether this should or should not be included. Electricity costs are just the normal things, but it's something that at least council needs to be aware of, because the electricity increases are significant, and building it into the budget without council's knowledge, I don't think is a good idea. So certainly some of these are more for understanding, so council has a good grasp on where the changes of the budget are coming from. And then there's certainly discretionary items that are within this as well. So a lot of it is understanding. But it was just so council has that good grasp when the budget comes forward of where the increases or decreases are coming from.
Okay. Councils or anything further before we jump in? Sorry, Taylor.
Can somebody speak to the year-over-year spending increases? Like last year to this year, because we didn't get actuals or anything. So what are the actual spending increases be? Because we always concentrate on tax increases. Last year anyway, so what's the spending increases year over year? When are we going to look at those?
So through the chair, we don't have the actuals for this year. We'll having the budget process a little bit closer to November, I think we'll have a better projections, but there's quite a few bills that come on the later side of the year as well. So we'll have projections on where we're gonna land on budget for 2022. So we could certainly have that discussion.
Council, anything further? Okay, seeing nothing else then, turn it over to administration.
Thank you, Chair. So I will start with the first one, and this one is a separate event for long-term service awards. Long-term service awards, the rationale behind this one, it's a small dollar amount, and that's just to separate this from the Christmas party. I think there was a feeling that it wasn't some type of adequate representation. And we are a very good problem that the town is coming into is that we have more and more long-term employees. The projections have been included. Next year will be 20, the year after 24, long-term service, and then 40. The rationale behind this is that is a lot of people to recognize as a part of a Christmas party where there's just we need one event a little bit too burdensome. So that is the proposal. If there's any questions, either I or Nakia can answer.
Great, thank you, CEO. Council, comments, questions, Councilor Taylor?
See consensus that we take the separate event for the long-term service award out of the budget. I thought what was done last year was quite nice, and I was at the Christmas party, so I think it's fine without having to spend extra money in a difficult budget situation. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Taylor. Council, we have a consensus request. Any thoughts, comments, or questions? Ross?
Yeah, I understand we have a lot, to consider and stuff, but one of the things that we've also, part of our strategic plan is to build internal morale and things of that nature, and the fact that our staff have stated this would be preferable. Not everybody comes to the Christmas party. Not everybody is necessarily that's going to be recognized is going to come to that Christmas party. It's usually only a handful of people. So I'd like to see it stay personally, to see how everything flushes out. It's not, a for sure done deal with this, but at least we can see, the impact that keeping this in could have on the overall budget. It is a small dollar figure, and we get a lot of, I guess, impact to the staff with it. So that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Haas. Councilor Reese?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will not support that motion. I feel this is an opportunity for us as council to show how much we appreciate the staff. I know we're using taxpayer money, but boy, I'll tell you, year 26, that's going to be one heck of a long Christmas party with 40 people getting recognized. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councilor Reese. Council, anything further? Okay, seeing nothing further from council, call to question the consensus request to exclude separate event for long-term service awards from the 2024 budget. All those in favor of excluding, please indicate. And opposed. And that was defeated 1-3 with Councilor Taylor voting in favor. If there's anything further on the separate event, the long-term service awards, we can move on to insurance increase facilities.
Yeah, through the chair, would you like to parking lot this one or have it proceed to be built into the?
Yes, sorry, I guess we shouldn't have moved on quite yet. We didn't make a decision on it. Council, what would we like to do with that one? Councilor Haas?
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't remember what we did last night, but it's a long time ago on that other matter. But I'll move to keep the separate event for long-term service awards to the 2024 budget. Or seek consensus for that.
Thank you, Councilor Haas. Do you want to speak to it?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is not a finalization of the budget, and we will be seeing more accurate numbers in November, so then we can. Take a relook at this, but I still think it's an important part for our organization. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Haas, Councillor Taylor.
I'll be voting no. If we don't vote no to a few of these things, we're gonna end up with a high tax rate, and that's not gonna work. And this year, we don't have the option of reducing capital, because the capital is already reduced to some level. So keep that in mind when we go down this list, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Council, any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing nothing, then we will call to question the consensus request to include separate event for long-term service awards in the 2024 budget. All those in favor? And opposed? It is carried 3-1 with Councillor Taylor in opposition. Scale, if you want to move on to the next one, if there's nothing else.
Yes, through the chair, I will give this one to Ms. Provost.
Make use of the podium on here. So corporate services has been working with our insurance provider quite closely over the last year. Partly due in part to asset management, because we're trying to make sure that the data that's going into the system is solid. And through the process working with them, we've discovered that in some cases, our facilities are underinsured to where they should be rated to standard. In the business case, I use the example of the rec center. As it's insured right now, it is insured on historical values. So if it were to burn, sorry for that, the maximum we would receive in insurance proceeds for that is $26 million, which doesn't leave us with enough money to even begin thinking to replace the recreation center. And that's what we're finding with a lot of our facilities is should the most unthinkable happen, we would be very cash flush, but not with enough cash to start replacing our assets. So we have chatted with insurance. They said a municipality of our size with our facilities, the water treatment plant and all of the other services, we should be at premiums of around $600,000 a year, and we're currently paying $322,000 a year. So we're looking to council for direction to implement a $50,000 increase every year for the next 4 years. That will allow us the opportunity to ensure that we're not overinflating values, because we're having time to work through insurance with this. Proceeds this year would be focused on the facilities if we did receive the additional funding, and we would focus them to increase insurance on the affordable housing that was just implemented, some of the water treatment facility, and the golf course clubhouse. Any questions?
Great, thank you, council. Any comments, questions, Councillor Taylor?
How have our claims been in the last 5 years? Have they increased? Are they increasing?
Claims for facilities have been relatively low. Where we have had some is with moving equipment. We have had some claims with that. As far as other claims in general, I don't have the data as far as what was, because quite often residents will ask us and we initially will put in the claim, but not everything goes through. We let insurance be the adjudicators in those instances. So I could get the data for you on
No,
that.
relatively low is good enough. And how is can I ask a follow-up?
Mhm.
How has the risk increased over the last 5 years?
The main risk that I think is top of mind for everyone is our location within the wildfire area or the wildfires in the past. Operationally, I know that staff are doing what they can. They're very attentive to this, and we're working to ensure that trips, slips, falls, and all of those maintenance items can be addressed in a very reasonable amount of time. It's just the overall risk that poses if we remain keeping our facilities underinsured.
Well, I have more questions, but I can wait.
Okay, put you back in queue, Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the three facilities that you're looking at right now are the affordable homes, the water treatment part of it, and the golf course clubhouse. But you had previously mentioned the rec center. So why is the rec center not on that?
The rec center wasn't on that list for this year because they're wanting to make sure that they have an absolute good measurement of square footage. And that we're insuring it for the right amount. We may be through that process partway through the year and can return. But that was, and that the three items that we have put forward were at the recommendation of the insurance company.
Thank you.
Councillor Race, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, why would we insure the golf course clubhouse? Is that our facility? Why wasn't the golf course insured?
It is my understanding and from the agreement I read that we own that facility.
Oh,
And we do periodic maintenance checks on it and the insurance is under the town of Hinton umbrella.
okay.
You, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm gonna move that we or seek consensus that we keep the insurance increase facilities into the 2024 budget. If I can speak to it, I mean, insurance is one of those things, it's a necessity. It doesn't mean we're necessarily gonna need it, but if we don't have it, and it doesn't meet the standards, then we're losing out on it, so. You know, and we've had, obviously, I mean, our community haven't, but other communities with the risk of fire. I'm also thinking of flooding, we've had a lot of rain recently too, and over the years, so. And locusts will be next and things like that, so I think we, you know, need to cover ourselves, so, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, we have a consensus request, comments, questions, Councillor Taylor.
I'm still thinking on this one, but you know. Your example doesn't scare me a lot, like a recreation building that we're gonna replace anyways. We got it underinsured and we get $26 million when it's gonna build, when we go to, if it burns down. And we were talking seriously about some sort of plan to rebuild it, right? That's not a scary thing if it's an older building like that, and then we're gonna build it with a new building, because we would have to demolish it anyways, and we would have to borrow a lot of money. So I just, that's sort of, can you help me with that thought? Maybe you can't, that's not a question.
Well-
I'm just thinking out loud.
You know, I do understand that and I understand what you're saying and
I'm just saying that some of these things that are older, maybe insuring to a minimum is not a bad way to go. Because that's an example of something that we're gonna get a benefit, we wanna replace it. And maybe it's not something we want to insure to the max. And increase that expense at this time, that's all I'm thinking.
well, I'm quite certain that as we move through this process with the insurance, it has been very newly started. It was just started, I believe, in June. And there will be a full report and we're working with them closely to look at all of our facilities and all of our assets that we do insure. We don't want to be insuring items that are out of circulation, so we're being very vigilant on that. And part of the reason why we're just asking for implementation in a step process rather than coming forward and saying insurance says we're underinsured and here's how much we need. So there is a process that we're going through on this. And we want to just make sure that we are looking at the square footage of the buildings and coming up with the actual cost that would be for replacement.
No, I appreciate that. It's just that it seems like an example you gave to justify extra insurance. I think it's an example that maybe would justify a minimum insurance, that's all.
And when we bring the report to council, then absolutely the discussion can be had at that time as to how you would like the insurance overall, the umbrella to be covering the town.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Race, and then Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will support Councillor Haas's motion. Do have a quick question. When you talk rec center, does that include the two rinks?
Yes, it does.
It does.
And my apologies, I should be going to the chair.
Thank you.
Councillor Race, Councillor Haas.
Yeah, just a quick addition to this one too. It's, you know, I mean. reality is we're protecting our ratepayers' assets with our insurance and ensuring them that, you know, if something were to happen to their assets, we could replace them, you know, so I think it's just due diligence that, you know, when I see that number of 322.5 when we should be at 6, you know, in my mind, that seems like it's very low, and, you know, I appreciate you know, administration bringing this to us to get us back in line, and it may not be up to 6, but at least we're ensuring better to protecting those assets. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. I did have questions to make sure that I fully understand the implication here. So we're talking a $50,000 increase this year. That come next year, that's carried forward, and then there's another $50,000 increase. That's then carried forward. So after 4 years, we're talking about paying an additional $200,000 in insurance cost each year, correct?
Through the chair, that is correct. They're saying our premiums are considerably low for our assets and what we maintain here. And this is why we're wanting to go through the comprehensive study with them and know exactly what we're insuring and be able to speak to that.
So $200,000 a year is pretty significant impact to our citizens in terms of taxation. I think it's important that in this day and age, with insurance increasing significantly every year, that the town and private business as well and individuals are making sure that they're appropriately insured. A $200,000 annual increase in insurance is significant to me. So I would like to know, what's the risk to the town of Hinton if this doesn't pass?
Through the chair of all council, and pardon me, $200,000 at the end of 4 years, putting our premiums.
Correct, but moving forward, though, it's 200,000 per year from 2027 onwards,
Right.
barring any additional increases that happen subsequent to that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, in an answer to your question, the risk to the town of Hinton, I couldn't give you an exact answer on that now. I would want to bring actual documents and conversations back and have a full report for you. And again, this is why we had anticipated this question and wanting to bring this in a staged format so that we could cover the new asset, the affordable homes that are put in down in East Hardisty right now, as well as the golf course building, which hasn't been in insurance's opinion correctly insured since the town took it over. We could certainly go back to them and find, if you would like this on the parking lot, and find out exactly what this changes and what our replacement value insurance is before it's passed. We certainly could do that.
You said there is a full insurance report coming forward. Would that be in time for the budget potentially?
Not for this budget season. It will be coming forward in 2024.
Okay. CEO Panasic and then Councillor Taylor.
Through the chair to members of council. I'll skip a few things I was going to say, but one of the things is that this is really just a question about risk tolerance, right? If we want to protect ourselves, be risk adverse, we have to have adequate insurance. The other thing that I will say is that Hinton, I don't know, is the #1 at-risk community in Alberta.
One of 3.
One of the top 3 at-risk communities in Alberta for wildfire, specifically. We are surrounded by old growth forests. You know, we are at significant risk. I would recommend to council that we should be going down this path relatively aggressively. It will be likely more expensive than 200,000. It increases, over the last few years, about 10% a year. Insurance is becoming very, very expensive, and in light of all of recent events this summer, I don't expect 2025 or 6 to be much different, but it's an expensive line item for sure, but it's a matter of how well we want to protect ourselves.
Councilor Taylor.
Well, I got two questions. First would be that, giving us an example, it sounds to me like we're overinsured on the rec center. And that you get. Anyways, so can you give me an example for a newer building? What would happen for a newer building? What we would get for back in insurance and replace it, like say this building. So if this building burns down. What would we get and how much would it cost to replace? Because that would be the tragic loss, right?
Through the chair to all of the committee. I don't have the numbers, my conversations with insurance, and I can certainly get the numbers, but my conversations have been with insurance that on average, our assets are insured at historical values. And some of this has partly occurred with individuals not going through and having those conversations and looking at a cost per square foot for rebuilding or for that building in order to have it insured for replacement costs versus historical costs versus depreciated costs. So there are options. We can certainly look at those. I'm not suggesting right now at this point that we need to have all of our assets insured at full replacement value. Perhaps there's some that council would not consider that to be worthwhile, and that's why the report would be coming forward, so that conversation could be had.
Yeah, because a building that we have to replace, being underinsured is a different thing than a building that we don't have to replace because we're going to replace it anyways. But my next question, if I could ask it, could I?
I'm assuming it's unrelated. I have other councils.
Okay, I can wait, sure.
I can put you back in queue.
Might not
Councillor
remember,
House.
but I can wait.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess what I'm hearing administration say is they're prepared, the information that they have right now, not yet having for the rec center, but what the buildings that are being proposed, we have information that you're prepared to bring to us at a later date maybe in the November meeting, that you're unable to answer at this time. So I appreciate all the questions from council, but I think for me, it seems like we need a little more information on the buildings, to whether or not to proceed. So I'm prepared to amend, and I'm looking to administration to move it forward. But what did we decide on last night? That if we want more information on a report on a certain item, what do we amend it to indicate that?
Through the chair, those are for noted projects, but my recommendation to this one is if council's not comfortable with proceeding with additional insurance and we want to talk about it more, just simply put it in the parking lot for now, we can have that discussion.
Okay, so to confirm, the parking lot's not for tonight, it's for at a later date.
Later.
So I'd like to amend mine that it goes to the 2024 decision, but into the parking lot for further report on this. Because I think we could ask a lot of questions if I may, but I'm not certain. My understanding is that men may not have exactly those answers quite yet. We'll be better equipped with it at a later date.
And through the chair, based on that report from our insurer, I don't know if we'll have all that accurate information prior to passing the budget. That's the one thing. We may be into the next year. We're operating off of recommendations from those insurers looking at our assets to increase those assets immediately with more fulsome strategy to come in 2024.
Okay, fair enough. Then. Okay, with that information, then I don't think amending it to the parking lot's necessary. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, so you just want to leave the consensus request as is?
Yeah, we'll leave it as is. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Haas. Councillor Taylor, you were in queue.
Yeah, I don't mind having a discussion on insurance. Outside the pressure of a budget to understand which buildings are well insured, which buildings aren't well insured. The risk of catastrophic risk to the town, how other towns have dealt with Slave Lake, how many other town buildings burnt down in fire, what that likelihood is. And, find out for the newer buildings, what we're insured at, are we underinsured, how much are we gonna get back? I think that would be a discussion outside of the budget cycle. I'm more than happy to do that. So I won't be voting to put this into the budget at this time until that discussion has occurred. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor, Councillor Hoss.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm still comfortable with the 50,000. It's the question of where we go from there. That 2024, we increase it somewhat. But it's the question for me is, is it reasonable for the next number of years to get it up to that 200,000? So, but again, this is not solid. This is it goes through, we see the numbers, and may have some information at that time. So I think it's still reasonable to not dismiss it quite yet. And see how it all flushes out, because I mean, as our CEO and admin staff mentioned, I mean, we are at significant risk. So again, it's our due diligence to protect those assets. So, and I don't think an extra $50,000 at this time is gonna, it's the rest. That's the question. And I think having that conversation outside of the 2025 budget is appropriate. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hoss. Council, is there anything further? Okay, nothing further, then we will call the consensus request to include insurance increase facilities in the 2024 budget. Council, all those in favor? And opposed? And that was not carried. With Councillor Taylor and Ostache voting against. Well, that wasn't carried, so what do we want to do with this? Parking audit, remove it, Councillor Hoss and then Councillor Taylor.
So my question then to administration, because I will move to remove it. But I know this isn't a committee of the whole or anything to make motions, but I'd like to remove it, but still then direct administration to bring back a report in 2024 for reconsidering the insurance rates for, the 2025 budget. So I don't know if I could make that motion in this meeting, but that's what I would prefer.
Through the chair, our intent is to bring it forward, so the motion may not be appropriate in the format, but rest assured that will be coming forward to council when it's here. Council does not want to include it in the 24 budget. That report will still come forward in 24 for reconsideration for 25.
Okay, so move to consensus. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
Just by way of process, I thought we were gonna say yes or no to these things. And if we're gonna try to make sure that every unresolved issue is totally solved and addressed, that this will be here forever. That's something that I would rather have you bring some information back to us, and then we try to make some sort of decision on what we want to do with insurance or any other issue that we have, rather than sort of jury rig something for the future based on an incomplete discussion that we had tonight. That's my preference. Let's just concentrate on the yes and no's and move on from there. If there's something that somebody really wants to do later, administration can bring it back. You can bring it back as a notice of motion or something like that.
Understood. I'm not really following though. There was a motion to include it and the motion didn't pass, so we have to give some type of
No, we
direction.
don't. It's passed. It's not included. We move on to the next topic. Why do we have to do anything?
Because there's options. It's not either include or exclude. It could be parking lotted. It could be, we want additional information in the parking lot. They're not just yes or no. There's other options that could be put forward. It's the same as what we did last night. If a consensus request was put forward and it didn't pass, then we had to bring another one to the table so that administration had consensus of council's will and what they wanted done with it.
Oh, okay, that's fine. I've given you my recommendation as to what to do with it. Thank you.
Understood, and that's the consensus request that Councillor Hoss has now put forward to exclude it. Councillor Race.
Sorry, so Councillor Haas, what was his direction?
To exclude the insurance increase facilities from the 2024 budget.
So,
And that's with the understanding that there's a report coming from administration to council on insurance for the municipality.
so my question is, affordable housing, water treatment plant and the golf course clubhouse. If none of this goes through. And something tragic happens to those three areas, it's not replacement cost. I'm sorry, it's not the worth they're at right now. Could be way down here.
Through the chair, that is correct.
Yeah, because that 50,000 was gonna go, not the 50,000, but the 300,000 plus 50,000 would be for these three areas.
Through the chair, that is where insurance
Yes.
recommending we focus those
Yes.
premium increases.
Alrighty, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Reese. Council, no, sorry, Councillor Taylor,
We voted to exclude it, didn't we?
haven't voted yet.
Oh, I thought we did.
No.
Oh,
There is a consensus request to include it that did not pass.
oh, I see, okay.
There's now a consensus request to exclude it.
Oh, I
We have-
see. Oh, yeah, sorry, I'm just a little confused. That's fine.
Okay. no problem.
Appreciate that. Okay, yeah. Yeah,
Okay, council, anything further? Okay, for myself, I am supporting the consensus request to exclude. What's missing for me is that insurance report to have a good understanding of where we're insured now, where we should be insured and what we need to do to get there at some point in the future. Today, to make a decision about increasing our budget by $50,000 without that information isn't something I'm prepared to do. If we've been underinsuring for this long, I don't feel that one more year is placing us at any significant risk above what we've been at previous. When we get that report, then I feel I will be better informed to be able to make a decision about what we need to do with insurance moving forward. So I'm looking forward to that report and then having this discussion again a year from now. Council, any other comments or questions? Councillor Reese?
Thank you, Chair. I won't support this motion. I don't want to wait a year. I do not want to wait a year, especially with us being one of the top three in this higher area that we're in. So I won't support it.
Thank you, Councillor Reese. Council? Okay, seeing nothing further from council, then we will call the consensus request to exclude insurance increase facilities from the 2024 budget to question. All those in favor of excluding, please indicate. All those against. Okay, and that is 50, or sorry, that is carried 3-1, that Councillor Reese voted against. Great. If there's nothing further for that one, we can move on to the next.
Here we have, operates the business case for gas detection equipment. The gas detection equipment, is to assist our employees in detecting potential hazardous environments and are a required system to be used prior to entering confined spaces or areas of known risk. These 4 gas detectors that are being requested would be utilized at the rec center and in the utilities department. Utilities department require a larger monitor that measures oxygen levels, carbon monoxide, H2S, and the lower explosive limit. And they use it typically when they're going into confined spaces like the lift station. The rec center would be utilizing single head individual monitors to read ammonia levels. Each work site would also require a bump station. That is a station with test gas so that the detectors can be tested and recalibrated each day. Currently, both work areas borrow one of the gas detectors from the fire rescue when they are working in these environments, which leaves the fire department short for the duration of their use. Occupational health and safety regulations require that these monitors are on site for use by our employees.
Okay, council comments, questions, Councillor Haas?
Yeah, I guess it's a question I have for some of, just not just this one, but others too, but what are we using right now?
Currently, currently what we use right now is a gas monitor that is operated / fire rescue services.
Okay,
And what we have a couple of them. And a pump station there at the fire service. When they're in use by one of the other departments, we don't have them. So if we get an emergency call, a carbon monoxide call, or any environment where we have to go into a confined space, we wouldn't have it at our disposal. We've operated this way for many years and we've gotten away with it. But occupational health and regulations require that these gas monitors are at the work site, available to the workers.
so if I may to follow up, then this is one that's really kind of just sharing the information with us, but we require these, and what the current practice is not sufficient to regulations is what I'm hearing.
Through the chair, that is correct. It's not a. We could continue to take that risk, but we're also risking funds from occupational health.
And I take it a canary is not enough.
Canary, through the chair, canary to the building.
Okay, thank you.
Could you please repeat your answer? I missed the first part of it. Can you say what you said again to his answer? I'm sorry, couldn't hear the first part.
Which part?
The start of it, all of it.
Okay, so, good question again.
What are we using right now?
Okay.
And yeah, that's how it started.
Current through the chair, we currently use one of the gas monitors and forehead monitors from the fire rescue service. And when it is out of the fire rescue, it is not at disposal of the fire department. For use when we go into confined space environments or carbon monoxide calls. So it's really robbing Peter to pay Paul. We got away with that for several years, but the regulations are clear. These gas monitors need to be at the work site.
Councillor Reese and then Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to move to include industrial hygiene services, gas monitors in the 2024 operational
I
budget.
think we're on gas detection.
Oh, I'm sorry, gas detectors. And
So did you still want B&Q then, or? We're on gas detection.
right, I said the wrong word.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So, I'll say it again. I'd like to move to include I would like to move to include gas detection equipment in the 2024 operational budget.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to speak?
I do. You know what, you hear of other communities where lives have been lost because that gas detection system was not there. And life is just too precious. So that's my justification for saying yes to this.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Reese. And council, we do have a consensus request on the table now for Councillor Taylor.
Two questions. I missed it. Was this portable? Which buildings are these in? Is this in like the rec center? Is that where this is gonna be? Are these portable or are these fixed units?
Through the chair, these are portable units. The larger monitors that would be required by utilities department are forehead. So they measure 4 different levels: oxygen, carbon monoxide, H2S, and the explosive limit. And they are still portable, so they can be used in different work sites, like the different lift stations, or they can take them to their work site. And the individual ammonia detectors would be utilized at the rec center, and they just hang on the workers person.
Sure, and if I may. What's the looks like $150,000 carried forward for years 2 and 3 in the future for? Make year 1 expenditure be up to make years 2 and 3 expenditures? Oh, I'm sorry, that's page 46. Never mind that question. But you see the problem, I'm looking at that page, then I'm looking at,
Yeah.
it's just.
Yeah, That's very good. Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, I'll follow the page. Sorry.
Council, any additional comments or questions? Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, and just, could you say again, was this to meet current regulations?
The chair, this is to meet occupational health and safety regulations.
All right, that's fine.
Councillor Taylor, council? Okay, seeing nothing further from council, we'll call the question, the consensus request to include gas detection equipment in the 2024 budget. Council, all those in favor? That's carried unanimously. If there's nothing further for that, we can move on to industrial hygiene.
Mr. Chair, the industrial hygiene services. This is a measurement and detection of airborne contaminants that are created during certain operational periods and are a critical function in protecting the health of our employees. There are 3 areas that required hazard assessments, and this proposal is to implement monitoring measures conducted by a third party. The first is, I'm spelling the mistake, I'm able to noise. Noise measurements, crystalline silica and airborne particulates while making ice at the rec center. Diesel particulate matter during ice removal that is generated by the skid steer, and the indoor air quality at the field and rec center. By implementing an industrial hygiene program, we as the employer are compliant with occupational health and safety regulations by quantifying employee exposures to potential hazardous working conditions. Indirect cost savings could be found by reducing lost time and workmen's compensation claims. In not implementing a program, we may face administrative penalties from overhead occupational health and safety.
Everybody got it? Councillor, sorry, did you hear everything she said? Okay, I have Councillor Haas and then Councillor Reese.
So the $19,000 is to hire a consultant or hire an outside third party to come in and assess these areas for these contaminants. That's what I understand, right?
Through the chair, that is correct.
So there could be, because of course, when we come in and do an assessment, there could be additional budgetary dollars that could build from this. Potentially, if there is a problem or if there measures have to be taken to somehow reduce it, is that, like with that type of study, is that a possibility?
Through the chair, that is a possibility.
It's a possibility, okay. I mean, if I may, Mr. Chair, I mean, again, this sounds like this is in occupational health and safety regulation that we are not compliant with at this point. So this seems like it is a necessary thing to do, but I guess it's just to be aware that we could cost them a little bit more money at some point. So, but thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Haas, Councillor Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are we seeing a lot of WCW claims in regards to what we're talking about here?
Through the chair, we have had complaints from our employees with regards to the silica contamination that was in our street sweeper. That problem was rectified. It's important to remember that with these measures, this gives us baseline measurements of what we have. The consultant or the outside party that does these measurements and calculations would give us recommendations, and those recommendations would be implemented in-house. So really, this measurement is it's a capacity issue that we're dealing with, and getting this established, the base levels of contaminants that are in our buildings when we're doing these functions, and then we can put in measures to protect PPE, whatever measures would be done in-house. Yes, there may be a cost to that, Mr. Chair, but by implementing the recommendations in-house, we would minimize those expenditures.
So you're right now, sorry,
Paula?
yes,
Okay.
you want to establish baselines.
Through the chair, that's correct.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reese. Councillor Haas, and then Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, based on that information, the fact that it is not meeting regulations, the possibilities of WCB, which we know can be also costly within an organization. I'm gonna, move that this be included in the 2024 budget, the industrial hygiene services, at the cost of $19,000. And I'm assuming that's an estimate.
Through the chair, that is an estimate.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, we do have a consensus request now. Any comments or questions? Councillor Taylor.
What do we do now?
Through the chair, what we do now is nothing. We protect our employees as best we can with dust masks and stuff, but we do not have a true measurement of what exposures they undertake when they're doing these functions.
Is this a mandatory requirement?
This is a mandatory requirement under occupational health safety. Sorry, I should go through the chair. It is a requirement under occupational health safety to measure and to take whatever measures we can to protect our employees from undue exposures.
We'll have one more. But I can wait.
Sorry, did I see a hand down there? Go
Nope.
ahead, go ahead, Debbie.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you through the chair. I just wanted to point out in both the business cases for the gas detection equipment. There is a PIR rebate, which is a WCP rebate, so the 9,000 would be cost neutral because it would be covered by our PIR rebate, which is our WCP program. And the industrial hygiene, although the 19,000 may be an estimate, 5,771 is covered by that PIR rebate as well, so that if that helps council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Sorry, Councillor Taylor, you have another question?
Thanks for that important information. So how often do we have to do this?
Through the chair, we vote on page 49. This is a one-time project.
So we do this once?
And then we have established our baselines, and then we take the recommendations from there and then operate the industrial hygiene service in-house.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Taylor. So if this can be done in-house moving forward, once the initial test is done, we don't have staff personnel who could do the initial assessment as well?
Through the chair, yes, we do, but as I stated earlier, it's a capacity issue right now. Staff member that can do it, if she has the time to do it, is actually on leave.
Councillor Taylor?
Is there a motion?
there is.
Yes, there is, yeah. Councillor Haas has made a motion to include it.
Yeah, I'm going for, I'm thinking about a no, because this can be done in-house and we can wait until the person comes back who can actually do this. So that's my preference, to do as much of this in-house. This is what the safety person, I think, is for. To do this kind of stuff, right? Not to contract it out and get other people to do it for them. That's my take on it, thanks.
Councillor Haas?
Yeah, sorry, I guess I missed that part about the capacity. I didn't realize. I guess my question though is how long? Because we're looking at. This wouldn't happen until after budget. How long is this staff member gone and, on leave? Is it a year? I don't know, like, I guess maybe that's information I can't be divulged, but I'm kind of having the same sense now, to be honest with you.
Through the chair, that's information that I shouldn't.
Yeah, okay. No, I appreciate that.
Thank you. Through the chair to members of council, maybe this one would be better off in the parking lot, because I don't know exactly what time requirement is necessary for this type of thing, maybe we could come back with more specifics on how much time, because the one thing I'll point out to council is, uh, we run a very lean group, we have a safety person that does not have time to do extensive studies when it comes to safety. They are maximum capacity, just trying to oversee and implement the necessary parts of our safety system. So that's why we are very reliant on contracted services, because we simply don't have that capacity. If this is a couple day thing, that's one thing, but if this is a weeks of work, we simply don't have, I don't know if, depending on how in depth this is, I don't know if we would be able to balance that. So I think we'd have to take a look at that a little bit more before coming forward with that recommendation.
Thank you, CEO, Councilor Ross.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. So I'd like to amend mine that this goes into the parking lot instead of just forward to 2024, but I think having that information is important, because if it isn't as extensive, but then we have a little bit more information and justification for it at this time, and that's what I would prefer, that with this one, so.
Thank you, Councilor Ross. So so sorry, you wanted to withdraw your previous consensus request then? Because it's not really an amendment.
I guess it
That's
isn't,
a
I
different-
didn't, yeah,
That's a different.
okay,
request.
then I'll just withdraw it. Thank you, if there's no
You
objection.
can make a new one if you.
Yeah, but I'll withdraw.
So withdraw previous, any objection to Councilor Ross withdrawing previous consensus request? Okay, seeing no objection, if you want to make another one.
Yeah, I make it consensus to put this into the parking lot.
Council, we have a new consensus request now. So any comments or questions? Councilor Race and then Councilor Taylor.
Thank you, sir. So what I want to ask is, when the professional comes out and does the monitoring, and it's not going to be, I'm going to do it all in one day, it'll be X number of visits. Would that person create a database for the town with this information?
Through the chair, that third party would produce a report for the town, that we would, take any recommendations from that report and implement those recommendations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Race, Councilor Taylor.
Will you be able to come back with information for us in the budget that gives us some enlightenment in this area?
Through the chair, yeah.
With another question, it's kind of related. We hire a safety manager or a safety coordinator? Because one does work and one tries to manage things. What did we hire?
Through the chair, safety coordinator. With some part-time help. Or the resources that we have in safety.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Thanks.
Councilor Taylor. Council, anything further? So for myself, I wasn't going to support including it. I actually don't think I'm going to support parking lotting it either. I feel this is something that we can do in-house at some point in the future when our safety representative is back at work and able to do this. In the meantime, at the organization that I work with, when we have a situation like this, we assume that it's beyond appropriate limits and we take proper precautionary measures. I think that's a measure that could be taken in the meantime until this can be done. I'd rather maybe a different expense than do it in-house, get that data available and then move forward from there. Thank you. Councilor Race.
Thank you, sir. So does the town have the proper equipment to do air sampling? And because it is special equipment you need.
Chair, I'm not sure if we have all of the appropriate equipment for that. Especially for the silica, the measurements of the parts permit for silica, that would have to be probably at the very least.
And then maybe some training might be involved in
Through the chair, possibly, yes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Councillor Reese, so I would like to follow up on Councillor Reese's question and. My understanding when I asked earlier if this would be able to be done in-house in the future, once the baseline's set. That may not actually be able to be done in-house, or are we talking that we're gonna take the results from the initial study and then just use that to create a mitigation strategy, and that's the in-house management moving forward?
Through the chair, that would be a good portion of it, and making sure that we have safe work practices in place, any necessary PPE.
Okay, so with that additional information, then it sounds like we're a little bit unsure about whether this can actually even be fully implemented from start to finish with in-house staff. So that being the case, I am changing my mind and I'll support parking lotting it. Councilor Race. Sorry.
Thank you, sir. Just a quick question. We are core certified, aren't we, our town?
Through the chair, yes.
And don't we need to have this in place to meet our core?
And through the chair. Yes, in part, we need this and several other components for core, but yes.
Thank you.
Councilor Race, Councilor Taylor.
Yeah, this budget process is, I'm not sure I support even that. This budget process is gonna be complicated to hash out these kind of details, this sort of thing. We can sort out partway through 2024 when we've got good information on the topic. That's my thinking. And try to keep this budget process as uncomplicated as possible. That's my thinking on it. Maybe we've been doing it for years and that we can do proactive safety equipment while we're in the process of doing that. So.
Thank you, Councilor Taylor. Councilor Haas.
Just a quick response, though. I mean, this is regulations, so I mean, the longer we wait. So I think this is an opportunity to understand what can we do in-house, what may be needed outhouse. And you gotta check those too for air quality. But you know, maybe there is something, maybe even if it's reducing the cost, but I think it's our due diligence, because if we wait into 2024, there's risks involved with that. So because we aren't meeting standards right now, so if you know, maybe our current personnel can't do it all, but maybe they can do some of it, we can offset some of it. So I just hope to have more information to make a more better decision on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Haas. Councilor Taylor.
Surely, if there's a reasonable risk, our administration would be having them wear protective gear to mitigate the risk. Anyways, thank you.
Councilor Taylor, Council. Further. Okay, seeing nothing further, then we'll call the consensus request to put industrial hygiene services in the parking lot for the 2024 budget. All those in favor of parking lot? And opposed? That's carried 3-1 with Councilor Taylor in opposition. Thank you. Moving on to infrastructure services, ice control material budget.
Okay, good evening, council. Yeah, so the first one I have with you tonight is the ice control material budget. We are currently overspent on this particular item in this year's budget. And this request is being brought forward. It's not actually an additional 150,000. You'll see this year's budget was 84,000, so it's going from 84 to 150. And we gave you a complete breakdown of exactly how that breaks down in terms of dollars. Basically, we have a spot where we can keep our sand and salt. We keep 3,000 tons in there to take us into a winter. We try to be cognizant of, you know, use what we can. And if we get through the winter without using it all, then we cost us less the next year to refill it. And that's where it's at.
Mr. McLaughlin, Councilor Taylor, Councilor Ross.
So. Voting no to this is akin to saying that I don't want snow removal or safe roads, like we want
We'd
to,
be able to plow, we just wouldn't be able to sand.
well, we could run out of sand. That's what happens if we vote no, okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like much of an option, thanks.
And, this was an item that was previously reduced, and I think what may have occurred there is we may have saved money one year by not using it all, had a light winter. And then when we underspend it one year, it appeared like a place where, oh, well, we don't need as much money there. And then and then we're overspending this year because we needed to fill it back up.
So this puts us, can I?
Mhm.
This puts us to a level that the pile of whatever this stuff is enough to more than cover the winter.
It is.
Unless it's an obscenely,
It's-
snowy winter.
It's the same amount that we've always had, so if we get more changing winter, maybe we'll have to look at more storage somewhere, but we have a spot inside lead course. Facility where we store ours, and it's always been the same size, and we've always put the same amount, and that's how much we have going into a winter. And it's generally always worked out for us.
Councilor Taylor, Councilor Ross.
So, and I may be off base here, but I recall that some communities, and I think it was more the larger ones, but I still think I would like to ask it is repurposing this. I've heard that, they take the piles and they sift out all the garbage and reuse the salt potentially. Is that and I mean, the cost probably is.
Through the chair, yes, there is some very good novel ideas that is happening in that space. Alex did a lot of work in investigating that. We even did some trials of it. To implement such a thing, we would need a number of things, and we know better than to put that forward at this time. But we need a better place to store our sweepings when we pick it up in the spring, which we don't have. We would need the contractors to either gear up with different equipment, or we would have to purchase different equipment. There was a number of hurdles when we gave it a try that just in our current state, we don't think we can do that.
Okay, I can follow up real quick. Have we also looked at alternatives to sand? Like, I know other communities have used liquefied types of materials. I'm thinking there was one in BC, they were doing it on the highways. But is there another material that potentially that mitigates the storage and mitigates that? And I mean, I don't know what it costs a bit, but have we ever looked into any other options?
Through the chair, I do have experience with different trials of different products. I don't think that we have anything that can replace what we do. There is places where they use calcium instead of salt in certain locations for certain things. They do things like pre-wetting before a storm comes, which gets you back quicker and things like that. There's been beet juice used in places. There's, so from my time at transportation, I'm familiar with a lot of those studies, but they do it in very big volumes, and nothing has come forward that has made them change in any major direction.
Okay, thank you, fair enough. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
And thank you, through the chair, the cost of the sand, if you look into the OBC here, is not the major cost here. It's about $52,000 or 3,000 tons. It's the cost of the salt that is the bigger aspect here. And what we're doing is we're trying to pickle it with the sand, and we've put less salt into the sand to try to get it to last longer, but we're still looking at and trying to get more. In spite of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Ross.
I'm good.
Council. Councilor Taylor.
Yeah, so this says 3,000 ton capacity, so that's an 80 ton capacity for the other thing. So I got the impression reading this that we're a little bit low and this is just top up money to make sure we have enough. So this, we're buying 3,000 of sand. And that's for the 3,000 capacity of street sand. So that's a different impression that I started this conversation with. And then 80 tons of salt. For 380. You know what I'm saying? Like that, to me, this was kind of top up money to make sure we could go through the winter. This sounds like it's money to completely buy it for the winter, which is a different impression than I had.
Through the chair, on the second page, we're asking to bring the line item up to 150,000. Our previous line item was 84,000.
Oh, I see.
So this is a change from 84 to 150.
So if I may, I think maybe the confusion is on the list. It's indicated as a $150,000 budget impact. It's not actually.
Oh, so that's a lower number.
Yes, the budget
Oh.
impact is 150 minus 84.
So we open ASIC. Councillor Haas.
So I wanna see consensus that we include. Let me get the right wording here, include the ice control management budget to the 2024. Budget, which that isn't, I'm not gonna say the number, but it's up to the 150, so whatever 150 minus 84 is what the budget impact really is. Whatever that number is.
66. Then, man,
Councillor Taylor.
may I offer friendly help to you? Can we please make that number 66? Because that's what we're talking about.
Sure, if
That's what the wording
good.
says, increase it up to 66,000.
Sure. As long as it's captured that it's not at 66,000, it's 150 is the actual number. That's at the end of the day, we're gonna be spending 150, we're just spending more, $66,000 more than we did last year.
Yeah, I'm just going with
Yeah.
the plain English language interpretation of the words they say on the.
Yeah.
That's fine. I think that brings additional clarity to it. You're okay with that?
Yeah.
Councillor, everybody okay with adding that? Any opposition? Seeing no opposition, then that is becoming, that's now become part of the consensus request. Are there any comments or questions? Okay, seeing nothing further, then we will call the question consensus request to conclude ice control material budget at $66,000 in the 2024 budget. Council, all those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Okay, so if there's nothing further for that, then we can move on to the bridge inspection program.
May I, please?
Councilor Taylor.
Oh, yeah, confused again. So this says it was a 10% increase. Now we've gone from 84,000 to 150,000, so that's more than a 10% increase. That's like a 80 to 90% increase.
Sorry, Councilor Taylor, where are you reading 10% increase?
Well, the first sentence, processing of freight have increased by.
Sorry, what page?
He went back to ice control.
Mhm, yeah,
I'm trying to understand the
Under
percent of,
project summary, is that where you're?
yeah, it's not necessarily 10% increase, is that right?
Through the chair, this is an increase a lot more than 10%, but our costs have increased 10%. But the reason we need such a big ask this time, it was that we reduced the budget before. And we didn't have enough this year to put up a file, but we did it anyway. But we're just noting that, yes, our costs are we're having an inflationary cost, but we also need to put it back to what it used to be because we needed that money to put up the pile every year.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Taylor. If there's nothing further for the ice control item. Okay, we could move on to bridge inspection program.
Hey, council. So we don't currently do formal bridge inspections. And we're bringing this forward because we think we should be. If we have our bridge bridges registered with Alberta Transportation, and we follow their bridge inspection program. When one becomes due for replacement, we will be eligible for their funding. And I don't believe we have chased that funding in the past, and we should when bridges are due for replacement. It's also a safety thing. It's sort of the level, the normal level that municipalities should be doing is inspecting their bridges at least on the 58-month cycle.
All right, thank you. Council comments or questions? Councilor Race?
Thank you, sir. So you say we don't have a formal process. Did we have a process in checking our culverts and our bridges?
No, I would say our current process would be looking at things when we see problems. So it's how we've been doing it up till now instead of doing formal inspection.
So I am prepared to do a consensus.
Mhm.
I would like to move, or seek consensus from committee that we move the bridge inspection program into the operational 2024 budget. And to speak to that, to me, this is a big liability concern. If we had something happen, we have no documentation at all. And that's a concern to me. So getting a process, getting something online, would have that documentation should something come up. And for the reasons you spoke to also. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor Reese. Councilor Taylor?
The numbers of bridges and culverts are so small. Like, couldn't we do this with their own staff? Like, make up a form. You know, engineer's driving out to look at something, he stops at a bridge, heck, you know, nice little walk around the bridge, have a look. Discovers some real problem, then maybe if it's structural or whatever, maybe we have to call in an expert or something. Can't we have like a, you know, that kind of inspection program with our existing staff?
Through the chair to the rest of council. This bridge inspection program is sort of set up by Alberta Transportation, and the bridge inspection is a specialty that you both need training and certification for. I did the education component, but I never did the field aspect of it to become certified in it. And the people that do it, you actually have to do so many a year to even stay certified. So this is a specialty thing. The cost is very, very low in terms of the inspection. Where this could cost money in the future is usually those inspections reveal work you should be doing. But that's also a good thing because that'll help, allows you to fix things while they're still small. And it's just the right thing to be doing.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Haas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be supporting this, and I guess the biggest thing for me, tipping scale is if we needed to replace a bridge without these inspections, then what I understand is any granting would we be very unlikely to receive any funding or any granting for the bridge if we don't have these assessments done versus if we do it. Is that, to confirm, to clarify, is that correct?
Through the chair of the rest of council, yes. Alberta Transportation through their STIP program funds bridges yearly, and they actually track all of the bridges in the province. So when we start doing this, the bridges would actually be registered with them as part of the provincial database of bridges. And although I can't say 100% that they would say no, by doing this program, you improve your chances of getting the grant funding because you're in their system with your bridges and they're seeing the condition of them on a yearly basis, or on a 58-month cycle is what it generally runs.
So based on that, I'm assuming and guessing bridges are not an inexpensive thing to change, and I'd rather not see that. We know what the Beaver Boardwalk Bridge costs, so I imagine what a highway bridge costs. So not that I bring that up again, but yeah, but I would, yeah, I'm in favor of this consensus on those reasons. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Oscar, Councilor Reese, and Councilor Taylor.
Thank you, sir. So would this information go into our asset management program? Because these are assets of ours.
Through the chair, yes, 100% they would.
Thank you.
Councilor Taylor,
So 11 bridges is gonna take us 3 years and $5,000 each. Oh, am I looking at the right page? Well, yeah, I am at this time. That's an encouraging thing. So $5,000 a year for 3 years to do 11 bridges.
Through the chair to all of council. So this is a program and we're looking to budget $5,000 every year going forward. And so if we round it to 12 bridges, that would be for a year. So you put the bridges on a 58-month cycle for inspection, which is approximately 3 years. The reason it's an odd number is to actually move it so that your inspections are happening at different seasons, so you're not always looking at the bridge every single time at the same time. So by dividing it into 3, that means a bridge inspector would be coming to town at least once a year. So if they find a problem with one bridge and you decide you want that bridge inspected every year, well, he's coming anyway. So that's why we've decided to, instead of bringing someone in and doing all the bridges at once, that's why we've broken it into that.
Okay, no, I just wondered.
thank you, Councilor Taylor. For myself, I'll be supporting this one. I think $5,000 annual investment in bridges and culverts is pretty minimal investment. With firsthand knowledge of knowing what emergency bridge repairs cost, and heaven forbid an emergency bridge replacement would run into the millions of dollars even for a small bridge. I think 5,000 a year to be able to proactively manage our bridges and culverts is a pretty small investment. So again, I'll be supporting it. Council, any other comments or questions? Okay, oh, Councilor Taylor.
Maybe a minor question. Inflation number I was given previously was 3.8. Here I see you use 1.9. There's inflation in the infrastructure department and engineering less than general inflation numbers that we're using for the rest of the municipality.
Chair, I can't remember the one. I'll have to refer that question to Alicia.
Sorry, what was that?
This one, it had an inflation of 1.9 instead of the 3 point some. I think that might. Where did contracted services? The contracted services were all 1.9, and this is a contracted service.
That's, oh, I see, 1.9 for the contract service. Okay, thank you.
And Councilor Taylor. Council, any other comments or questions? Okay, and nothing further from council, then we will call the question. The consensus request to include bridge inspection program in the 2024 budget. Council, all those in favor of including, it's carried unanimously. That brings us to road and street budget increase.
Okay, this one is for increase to road and street budgets. This is for general patching around town, spray patching, crack sealing, that type of work. When we went out to get pricing this year, the spray patch, we didn't actually do it because it exceeded budgets. So we're looking to increase this value just because these things have went up significantly over the year. Again, I want to highlight that we're not asking for an additional 125,000. This one is similar to the ice control. This year's budget was 100,000, and we're asking to go from 100,000 to 125,000. So this is a $25,000 ask, not 125.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Council, Councilor Taylor.
Does that affect the tax rate? The tax rates here were all calculated based on those bigger numbers, correct? Probably.
That's a good question. Sorry, what was the answer there?
Through the chair, yes, so these two anomalies, and I'm looking through, I see we have a couple more, they will affect the tax rate in the good direction, it'll be going down. And then this is part of the recalibration and the one-on-ones that we'll be doing over the next few days.
Geez, you guys in engineering are good.
Councillor Haas.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that. But I guess my question around, because we were talking about the roads and that's the spraying of the roads. Get a lot of comments, not great comments on that process. Creating a lot of gravel, a lot of, things like that. Is there another product that might even last longer than yearly? Like I know some communities I've heard do more of a rubberized spray, avoiding the gravel, but also it melting into the surface better and maybe being more longer lasting than say what we currently use. Or am I off base on this one? I mean, I'm not totally, but I've heard comments, but I've also heard there's other products. So, and maybe they're more expensive, just like the other things, but.
Yeah, through the chair to council, we use a couple of different pothole patching material, which is I think what you're referring to. Where in terms of the crack sealing, again, the crack sealing, there's a couple different things. There's both hot pour and cold pour. And I mean, and then the spray patch, there's only really one type, but the pothole patching, we had to do quite a bit this year with basically just bringing in totes, which is pre-mixed. And so because it's in smaller quantity, you're using that type of material, and you're right, because it's not placed hot, it doesn't last quite as long. So I would say that a lot of our product choice is because of the small quantity that we do compared to other places.
Okay. And I guess if I may, Mr. Chair, I'm more, I think, focused on the spray stuff. The crack spraying is, I think, the one I'm more, I realize the potholes and stuff, but I just, a lot of comments, like I've said, in the community about that process and, and it does take a lot of the time as well, because we have the street sweep before, then we do it, and then you get a street sweep after as well. So I mean, there's quite a lot of work involved in it. So I just wondered if there was maybe a more efficient product and that might be out there, but it's just a question. I mean, our roads are important and everything, but I just wasn't sure if there was other options. That's all.
Thank you for that,
Yeah.
Councillor Haas. Councillor Race and then Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, sir. I'm prepared to make a direction here. Seeking consensus to move the road and street budget increase of 25,000 into the 2024 operations budget. But I don't need to speak to it.
All right, just to clarify that, you said to include it, correct?
To include it,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah. Okay, so council, we do have a consensus request. Any comments or questions? Councilor Taylor.
Well, yeah, I think I'm in favor, but my question is, so like last year we had 100,000 because we didn't have enough money to do the whole thing with this patch work spray thing. We didn't do it at all. Why didn't we just do what we could have and then done something different with the rest? Why did we just stop at 80%, 70%? Why didn't we just do part and then do the rest some other way? Why would we have just not done any of it?
Through the chair of the rest of council, what we did is we made up for it by doing more of the pothole patching and the crack sealing instead of doing spray patch when the spray patch came in at a very high price. So there was no one around. The price was unreasonable. You would
Oh, I get what you're saying. You're saying that you used the money to do this other technique instead. Right,
Yes.
okay, I get it, thanks.
If I may, I'm assuming this was a tender. And it went out as a package and, this is what we've done, and then it came in higher than what the tender was, and there was no provision in the tender to do part of it. Is that correct?
Yes, and even then, we wouldn't have wanted to because you would be paying too high a price for what you would be receiving.
Gotcha. Okay, having no one else in queue, I did want to speak a little bit to Councillor Haas' point earlier that he made up. And I know it's not really appropriate for a budget discussion, but I do have to support what Councillor Haas said. I get a lot of complaints after crack sealing was done. That it's really rough, especially last year, year before, they did Switzer. Tons of complaints about how rough Switzer was after the crack sealing was done. So I don't know if that's contractor selection, I don't know if that's the process, I don't know what is entailed there. But whatever happens moving forward, hopefully that this can be done with a minimal noticeable impact to the traffic that's traveling over it after it's done. That said, it will support the increase, so I want to make sure roads are properly maintained. So. Would that just point wanted to make? Council, anything else? Any other comments or questions? Councilor Haas?
Just to add to that, I guess, in my opinion, I feel it is a budgetary thing, because hearing what we hear from the residents, and we're paying what we're paying. One of the things that I think is to think about in the future, maybe if there's another product that might cost more money, but cause less distress in our community, that might be, worthwhile to it. So I think, just having that conversation to throw out there, maybe not for this year, but future years, to look at whatever those products are. And if it costs more, then we can go back to our community and say, hey, this is a problem for you. We can mitigate it. However, it means more money. So I think it's, it may not be specific to, but it could be in the future. So.
Thank you for that, Councilor. Since we started down this road, I guess then, in terms of contractor selection, is there any stipulations regarding experience, or does the tender require smoothness coefficient? I know paving contracts have that sometimes, to make sure that the end product is acceptable to the town and the residents who drive on it.
Give the chair to follow the council. What I'll do is I'll take back these comments and talk to my crew and try and get a little more detail from their perspective, what went wrong those times, and see what we can do moving forward to try and alleviate some of those things.
Okay, council, any other comments, questions? Okay, seeing none, then we will call the consensus request to include road and street budget increase in the amount of $25,000 to the 2024 budget. Council, all those in favor? It's carried unanimously.
Sure, if I could. I started eating my burrito before I announced whether we wanted to take a break. This is a lighter agenda than we had yesterday. I think it has a little bit of time if we wanted to take 15-20 minutes and eat and then resume. That's the will of council.
Council thoughts? Councilor House?
Yeah, I feel this evening is going along a lot smoother and be quicker, so I would look for consensus to take at least 15 minutes.
Okay, there is a consensus request to take a 15-minute recess to enjoy our meal. So all those in favor? Oh, sorry, Councilor Taylor.
By the time we finish the vote, I think I'll be finished eating.
Some of us haven't started.
But please go ahead with your vote.
All those in favor? Okay, that's carried unanimously. We'll reconvene at 5:55. You got it. Hey everyone, we'd like to reconvene the budget meeting for this evening. I believe we're on. Traffic sign budget. Correct? Yeah, I believe that was consensus was to include that. Okay, so traffic sign budget.
All right. So council, we are asking to increase the traffic sign budget. This is an area where we have overspent in the past. Our 5-year average spending on this line item is $8,400. So we're asking to go from $5,000 to $10,000 annually. But the other part of this that isn't listed on your summary sheet is you currently have a traffic bylaw in front of you that you've done first reading on. And you were told as part of doing first reading that it would cost roughly $11,000 to redo the signs in town. And that also included putting in some no parking signs as well. So depending on if you think the bylaw is going to go forward, this number should either be $5,000 increase or $16,000 increase. If you follow.
Okay, and that's because of the $11,000 for the speed sign changes. that would
Yes.
be associated with that bylaw if it passes.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, council, thoughts, comments, directions? Councilor Ross?
Just to, I guess. Because the 11,000 is potentially 11,000 is a one-time fee, is it? Fall under possibly safety too with our reserve for that we could take that project from those funds instead of increasing this particular one and leave it at the 10.
Through the chair and call of council, the way we envisioned this was that you would increase the amount here to what we need, thinking whether or not we'd need that 11,000 or not. But where the 11,000 will come from is, again, we will look more through this in the budget process. But we believe that the additional 11 would come from the money that comes from the traffic enforcement fund.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't be doing that 11 from taxation.
And if I may follow up, that's my, because that changes again your number. But it would be a less of the impact of the taxation and that coming from reserves. So, but that I would, I would be in favor of that. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Ross. Council? Nothing else, we would need a direction. Councilor Ross?
Yeah, I'll move that we we include the traffic sign budget in the 2024 budget deliberation.
Okay, did you want to speak to?
Yeah, and there we can have a more informed discussion as to where that 11,000 might come from, whether it's taxation or from that reserves, have a better picture of that, and then that will impact the rest of the monies as well. So, because we're looking at increasing it by not the 5,000, but more the 16,000 is what you're proposing for 2024, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, that's moving it forward.
Thank you, Councilor Ross. I'm just sort of a little bit confused. Like, I get it. I understand why it's 16,000 or 5,000, but if the bylaw passes, the 11,000 is likely going to come out of ATE reserves for the change in traffic. So should that even be a consideration then for this item? This is more for standard street sign change replacement. I'd like a little bit of clarity on the number that we're voting to support or not. That's for administration, I guess.
Through the chair, what I would recommend is because there is no surety that bylaw is going to come into place. I think what we should be talking about today is likely the regular operating budget on how much it costs just on a yearly basis to purchase and install new signs. And then we can certainly come forward at a later date with an additional amount that would be funded through the MTE reserve, should council pass that bylaw. But at this point, I wouldn't want to make any assumptions and have an open mind with that process.
Councillor Ross.
Yeah, so with that, then, I agree, so I'm just proposing then that the 5,000. That it'd be increased from 5 to 10, come to the 2024. And the extra 11 will be at another time, if passed. That's what I'm proposing.
Okay, so the budget impact for operating business cases would be $5,000.
Correct.
Okay, as long as that's captured and understood. Council, comments or questions? Councillor Taylor.
I know this isn't a big amount. So this was cut to 5, it'd be 7,500. And then like, maybe if this is 3 or 4% inflation, that adds on another 200 to 300, which is 78. Where does the extra $2,020 dollars come to make it 10,000? And my concern is that if we buffer everything in the budget this way, it all adds up, and we could have a huge buffer built into the budget that's detrimental for trying to do things.
Through the chair to all of council, our 5-year average is $8,400.
Always for.
That's what we've been averaging. So that's why we chose 10 as the number. We are seeing a fair number of sign requests. It seems to be a very fairly common, and has risen over the last couple of years. So that's why we thought but council is certainly welcome to use their discretion in what they said.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Council. If there's nothing further, then we will follow the consensus request to include traffic sign budget in the 2024 budget. Question, all those in favor? It's carried unanimously. There's nothing further on that. We can move on to lease of town vehicles. That's still in, correct? It's just not a administrative priority, correct?
Through the chair, it's not an administrative priority, but it is included for 2025 consideration, and this is all part of further conversation when it comes to how we manage our fleets. You know, there are a few different options out there. We talked about the electrification, enterprise fleet management is another option that we're going to introduce for possible consideration in 2025. Obviously, pending further discussion throughout the year with council.
Okay, thank you. See you.
Okay, I think, you know, we are asking you to consider this in 2025. When we were preparing this, we were talking about 2024, and we've done quite a bit of legwork on this, and I think it's good to introduce the topic to council so that they can start making themselves familiar. Enterprise is willing to come and make presentations to council. However, I think the appropriate time to do that is after council has some knowledge of the program, so they have the good questions when you get a chance to ask them. Many municipalities have moved to this system, and really what it is Enterprise helps you manage the fleet, and they flip the vehicles every 16 to 24 months through a leasing program, and by doing that, it helps build some capital, as well as it gets you driving newer vehicles, reduces maintenance costs, reduces gas, and they have a whole program that they put together that shows you the savings you'll see versus just buying the vehicles and keeping them till their end of life like we currently do. It is something I'm familiar with from my previous employment, and it is very popular with municipalities right now. And so for today, I think is just, you know, read the material, start thinking about it, and we'll talk about it more in the future.
Okay, thank you. Council, comments, questions, consensus, Councilor Taylor?
Yeah, no, I've talked to a number of people who have had enterprise come around and give them chats, and they say it sounds convincing for a couple of days, now they put the thinking caps on. Here's what I've been told, that the little or no savings in small towns on maintenance, because the vehicles we would get would have warranties for a while. And both the ones you buy and the ones you lease are gonna be fixed at the same location. Might be savings with large fleets due to reduced administration costs, but not with small fleets like we have. And basically, it all works down to basic math. We have to pay for a company like this, we'd have to pay interest costs, we'd have to pay administration costs, we'd have to pay profits, and off that would balance what we would benefit from, which is their increased savings from the fact that they can buy and sell the vehicles more advantageous to us. And then the other fact is, under this plan, we'd be returning the vehicles earlier as opposed to the vehicles that we would buy. So that would mean that we would be returning them years earlier, and then we would just be getting over the depreciation, the significant depreciation part of the vehicle, or we'd be benefiting from the lower depreciation for the longer, keeping them the longer period of time. And these are on relatively low mileage vehicles, which is what the numbers here show, that these aren't high mileage fleets. So for the kind of fleet we've got, it just doesn't seem to make sense to me. And I know enterprise can go around and give a convincing story, but it doesn't make sense to me. Thanks.
Councilor Taylor, Councilor Haas?
Thank you. I'm gonna move that we see consensus to include the lease fleet in the 2025 budget. And if I can speak to it, these are all valid points that Councilor Taylor has made. However, I'm looking for a more in-depth report from administration and an opportunity to hear from enterprise as well, and then make a decision based on all that information to see, if this is a benefit for our community. And it's not on this budget, it'll be for next, and we'll be discussing it in 2024. So thank you.
Councilor Haas, Council, we do have now a consensus request on the table. Any comments or questions? Councilor Taylor?
Yeah, I'll vote against it. I don't think it's worthwhile, and I'm not interested in listening to a heightened sales presentation by a lease company. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Taylor. Council? Anything else? Okay, we will call to question then the consensus request. Oh, sorry, Councilor Haas.
Yeah, but one of the things we've been doing over the last year is looking at what are other communities doing of our size, and what I'm hearing is there's a possibility that other communities are also benefiting from it. So that's what I'm looking forward to hearing and seeing. So we've done it with other departments. Why not do it with this one as well and make a decision based on that? And so that's why I'm going to be in favor of it for 2025. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Haas. Council? See you.
Through the chair, just to members of council, I would highly encourage council to look at this as a very serious cost saving measure. This is not a what this is, and the proof that they've provided to the communities that are part of it. The other CAOs tell me that I'm crazy if we're not a part of this, because it has saved a tremendous amount of money. It's actually made them money in certain cases, because the whole business principle is enterprise wants to partner with government organizations like municipalities, because we get vehicles at a significantly cheaper price. They allow you to drive it for 1 to 2 years. They have analysts who look at the market in the United States. They don't sell in Canada. Once that market is prudent to sell, they come in, they scoop up all the trucks, they take them down to the States, and they bring you in a fresh batch. So there is a good proof that this saves and is actually made municipalities money over the last few years on your fleets, which is I think we should be open-minded and look at this as a very serious proposal.
You see, council? See nothing from sorry, nothing further from council. We'll call the question, the consensus request to include lease of town vehicles enterprise fleet management in the 2025 budget. All those in favor? Opposed? It was carried 3-1 with Councillor Taylor in opposition. I think that brings us to the end of infrastructure services, so we could move on to development services, electricity budgets.
Okay, that's still me. Uh, So we put electricity in as its own, but it's lots of line items throughout the budget. Basically, the spike in electricity prices is hitting us like everybody else. And you can see the projected of our this year versus what our 23 budgets are, and this is basically increasing to where we think that they're going to come in at.
Thank you for that. Council, comments, questions, Councillor Taylor?
If we vote no for this, we'll have to turn off the lights.
Yeah, well, I mean, or I guess so. That
Super, that's what I thought.
I get that question is a little bit facetious, but I guess not necessarily though, right? If that budget stays the same, then you still have to keep the lights on, but it would be up to administration to find out where the extra money's gonna come from through existing revenue sources to be able to pay the difference. Is that more accurate?
Yeah,
CEO.
through the chairs, you know, if we have to overrun an electricity line item, we would do that, and then we'd come to council and we would explain why we did that, it realistically. But this is just budgeting for the reality of the costs that we're seeing now. Electricity, some we're gonna hone in on and see what we can do. There are programs available to municipalities out there to try and lock those prices in, which to my knowledge, I don't believe I have that figured out, but you know, it's you know, this particular item, it's a massive increase. So it is something that we're gonna be looking into and how to mitigate our costs there.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, well, good point. So like 70% of the people I know have locked into a like a rate. They go for one of these you know, retail discounters to get a rate for their electricity. We're not locked into anything. We're just, because if you're not locked in, you'd be paying, you know, like whatever it is, 30, 29, 34 cents per kilowatt hour right now. We're not locked in. Those are the kind of rates we're paying for.
take this one.
Yeah, through the chair of council, I have not been able to find the agreement yet. We're actively looking at trying to find it, but to my knowledge, my building supervisor did say that in the past, we did sign on to some sort of 10-year agreement through, I believe, Alberta municipality. However, that agreement locks in the electricity rate. However, the transmission charges can fluctuate, and I believe that is what these increases here are.
Through the chair of council, we purchase our electricity through the municipal association, through their purchasing program. So they sort of manage that. So we that's how we're currently buying our electricity, is through the association.
Yeah, well, the purpose of people locking in at a price is to get some sort of stability from year to year. So looks like we got like a 30% increase from one year to the next year. So it looks like we haven't got any stability. So how come we be locked into some sort of agreement and get that kind of fluctuation?
we're, we're looking at that agreement, and we're gonna try to see what went wrong with what's going on. We're actively looking into it now to see if there are other options.
Council? There's no other questions, Councillor Haas?
Yeah, as much as I don't want to, but we need to pay the power bill. So electricity budget increase, I'm seeking consensus to add that to the 2024 budget. And knowing, if I may speak to it, knowing too that, you know, administration is looking into what currently is our agreement and actively looking into what those possibilities are, trying to reduce those costs. That's, you know, is I mean, that's good news. Hopefully we can, but in the meantime, increasing this budget, I think is necessary for the town. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, we have a consensus request before us now. Councillor Race and then Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, sir. I will support the direction and motion. I have a question though. We must get a bill every month or every couple of months. Do you know the rate that we are paying?
Often, through Jerry Council, often, no, like, these bills go directly to the finance department and they're paid essentially automatically, and this is part of us gathering all that information. We're gonna be trying to track down that agreement, and look back at our past few years of electricity bills to try to see what happened, what changed, what we can do to address the.
And one little quick question, the small homes, little affordable homes, there are electricity.
Through the chair of council, yes, they are. Through our agreement with Evergreen, they will be paying for the utilities of those. We've been paying the utilities up to the point of move in on the second units. But now going forward, they'll be paying the utilities. But you'll see that later on down in the agreement, we do have to provide some funding to Evergreen on a yearly basis, which is later on down the.
Would that affect the requisition that we pay yearly? Them taking over paying the electrical costs? The Evergreens,
What do you mean by I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
you know what, tax time.
This is a little bit
Oh,
off
sorry.
topic.
No, I'm just thinking. I'm done.
Sorry, Councillor Race. Yeah, sorry, Council, any other, sorry, Councillor Taylor, yes.
My information is slightly different than my colleague. I don't feel like I have to vote for this because the town manager just told me that he's not gonna turn off the lights. If worse comes to worse, he's gonna come back to us and ask us for another helping of money in order to pay for the electricity. And because I can't, there's not enough information here to understand this large cost increase and what's happening with the agreement. I'm leaning towards voting no for this until I can understand what's going on with our electrical agreements and our bills. At least no information on that.
Councillor Taylor, Council, Councillor Haas.
I guess my question to administration then is, if we keep the budget as it is, and then you do come to us and need more money, where does that come from?
CEO.
Through the chair to council. My general advice here is not to purposely and knowingly under budget on things. You know, like one of the big things that we're trying to do as administration is what I'm calling calibrate our budget, because there have been oddities like this, and we're trying to budget and follow proper budget principles, which is the budget for the costs that we believe. But I recommend that council does not knowingly under budget things. You know, I don't believe that's good budgeting principles.
CEO, Councillor Haas.
I mean, hearing that, so I guess my question is the money though, would, if we didn't budget for this, the money would have to come from other budgets potentially, and I mean, because we wouldn't have budgeted for it, is that correct?
Yeah, through the chair to members of council, the money is going to come out from general revenue in one way, shape or form. It's just whether we are accounting for that and estimating appropriately for that now. But it will come out of the same place at the end of the day. But I think we should ensure that our budgets are as accurate as we possibly can when we go to 2024 or any other year.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, I get that, under budgeting bad, but understanding what you're voting on, good. And I have a fiduciary obligation to the taxpayers to understand what I'm voting on. I just don't have that information right now. When am I gonna get that information? About the agreements and the long-term fluctuations and why we had such a fluctuation when we had an agreement, that kind of information.
To the chair and members of council, we can certainly bring that forward, but we know what our costs are, and that's what we're bringing forward, is we know what the cost of electricity is for us. It sounds like we've been part of AUMA for a very long time as a part of that program, as are most municipalities. Electricity is going up all the time, in one way, shape or form, we're gonna have to budget for this. If we are able to reduce our electricity costs, we'll certainly come to council and share that good news and that we can reduce the budget by that much. But as of right now, our recommendation is we know what our costs are. We know how much they're increasing, and at this time, we'd recommend that we budget accordingly.
Okay, thank you, CEO. Council?
Is there a motion?
Yep. There's a motion to include this in the 2024 budget.
Well,
Another question, Councillor Taylor?
so could we get if we put this in the parking lot, we get some information for a later part of the budget process, so we could understand what's going on with why we had such a large increase and what the costs are in the future with the agreement?
Through the chair, my best answer is possibly, yeah. My assumption is that we could likely have something in place. I'm looking to staff if we can sort this out prior to within the month.
Yeah, we certainly, we know we can go through our information and produce a report in terms of what we're paying, what's on the bills, all the information that way. We can contact AUMA, but that's what we get back from them is kind of out of our control. So we could certainly put together all the information we have and reach out and try and get additional information. But that's the one piece that would be out of our control.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Haas.
Yeah, I just something to come to mind on this matter and this very thing. If I recall, the new practice of administration is that halfway through the budget's year, a report is brought back and any adjustments to the budget that we've never done before in the past. This is a new practice of ours, but this would be an opportunity at that time to, if this goes forward, but at that time, re-look at, halfway through the year, where are we at? Have more information on, have that agreement, things like that. Because common practice is we do that as a municipality, but our CEO administration has started that process as well. So that would be also an opportunity to discuss this further at halfway through the year and make adjustments there, right?
Through the chair, yeah, certainly. So, what we call midterm budget adjustments are for those types of anomalies or any other major shifts or new information that's come delayed. So we certainly could do it there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Councillor Taylor?
Would anybody object if I made a amendment to what you're talking about to put this into the 2024 budget and request that administration in the later part of the little down the budgeting process, but before we finalize the budget, bring us information on this topic, better understand it? would anybody object to that? Or see that as an unreasonable request?
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. So just to administration, would that be like a parking lot item then with additional information?
Yeah, through the chair, it's yeah, if there's additional information required to include this one. Now this one might be a little bit yeah. What I would recommend is maybe to put it in the parking lot, but we will also include it in the budget on this one, just because we know if that's the direction, we can do a little bit of both. We'll include it in the budget, but know that more information is required from council to feel comfortable with this.
Councillor Haas?
Yeah, the only, and I appreciate that. I mean, the other one we did do is another option is I rescind it. Or withdraw that motion and just put it in the parking lot, and then it'll come back to us with that information. So if it's less complicated that way, but if you're comfortable with that, I'm fine with the amendment personally. I don't know what the rest of council feels, but.
So just before I go to council, then what would administration prefer?
So through the chair, why don't we include it in the budget, because we're fairly confident at this point that it'll need to be there. And then we can just bring some additional information, and that way we don't have to take something out we know we're just going to put back in and skew the numbers. And at least from my perspective, trying to bring something as accurate as possible on the front end would be best, but knowing that this is also a parking lot item for additional information.
Okay, so council, is there any objection then to Councillor Taylor's proposed amendment to request some additional information regarding electricity rates billing? Okay, any objection? Okay, not seeing any objection, then that is going to now form part of the consensus request. Are there any more comments, questions? Okay, and we'll seek consensus then to include the electricity budget increase in the 2024 budget with the request to administration for additional information. All those in favor? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Okay, so it takes us now to full-time utility operator position.
Yes, so we utilize contracted services to run our water treatment plant. And we have our own internal staff for running our distribution system as well as the sewer collection system. This OBC is to add a third person to that, and we're offsetting the cost of this by reducing the contracted services by a similar amount. So the intention is to that this would be somewhat a cost neutral item, but it would give us a third person so that in hopes to do better maintenance on our system and have the extra person available and not rely so much on pulling people from public works when we need to do two-person tasks in the utility area.
Great, thank you. So council, comments, questions, requests? So Taylor?
Yeah, well, I just look at the numbers I got right here. So this is cost neutral. I'm gonna pay 160,000 for this. And then I look at the contracted and general service numbers that I've been given, and that's up from 7.9 to 8.6. So that's up 8 to 9%. So difficult for me to see the savings. It's just looking like it's something that's going to cost us more money.
You have a question, Councillor Taylor?
Where's the savings?
Yeah.
So through the chair to the rest of council, when you're looking at that budget, that's a culmination of a massive amount of different elements that they include in there, right? all of these that you've been looking at today, those are all built into those numbers as well, right? So, we can't say that it's, the savings are there because we are pulling that from contracted services. Now, obviously, there's other costs, including that massive line that we've culminated all of those different line items in that line category. But on this particular item, it is being offset by the contracted services for the utility department.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Council, any other comments, questions, consensus, requests? Councillor Reese.
Thank you, sir. And so I just gotta do a little recap here. So we have two utility operators. If one goes on holidays or one gets sick or not there, then we rely on contractor services from Aquaterra. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. And at the beginning of 2023, we only had one and we were trying to hire the other one. And so when one was gone, we had nobody. And so that's why there was contracted services built into the budget, is we can't have nobody. So we managed to fill that position with a very qualified person. And now we would like to start building a third person so that we can try and catch up on some of the stuff that just doesn't get done.
So when the third person is online and see, like he's coming to us as a trainee or an apprentice trainee. So when he's online working, we'd be paying him around 150 plus. Because he's not there and we're relying on Aquaterra, we're putting out 140 some in a 6-month period. That's correct.
Yes. Well, 140 in a 6-month time is what we spent.
To Aquaterra.
Yes.
Sorry, through the chair to council. Yes, over a 4-month period, 6-month period, we paid $140,000 to Aquaterra for contracted services. A large portion of that is living out expenses. They come from Grand Prairie or from Edmonton, and they have to live here for 2 weeks as they're working here. It's incredibly expensive. The estimated salary, including benefits for this trainee position for next year, is estimated at $85,900. Additional tools required to equip this employee, including training, would be another $73,000 on top of that. And really, this is to adding a third person to our team would not necessarily bring us to a level of standards similar to different municipalities. Jasper, for example, has 6 full-time operators, and they have 2 full-time summer students for the summer season. Edson similarly has 4 operators full-time, and they have summer students coming in every year as well to help with the additional tasks there. So really, this ask is to help us ensure that water gets delivered to residents in an effective way and safe way, and we are keeping up on top of what we need to do.
So just a little quick, if I may, sir. So, other than the salary, it's a significant cost. The total is $43,000. It's a lot of money, and then the training on top of that. Do we see longevity with these people staying with us? Like, we're investing money in this person.
Yes, through the chair to council, we actually plan to hire someone internally from our organization. We see this as an opportunity to give someone that works for the town the chance to either change careers or grow from either a public works position or a parks position. We're offering them this $30,000 training budget to go through all the training required to become a water operator. This is done over the first 3 months. They have to pass their exams, and then the rest of the year, they're essentially working to acquire the hours necessarily to get their tickets. After that, they're a licensed operator and they're paid accordingly.
We don't make them sign, you're gonna stay for 5 years, for sure.
I'll leave that to our HR. professionals.
Yes, okay.
But we do have it written in the collective agreement that if they leave, some of the training costs are recovered. But our goal is to hire people who are already invested in staying here. Operator or utility operators are really hard to come by, and what you're finding is they'll get enough hours and then they leave, and they'll get enough hours and they leave.
Yeah.
We have a committed workforce. If someone's already living here and wanting to stay here, that's who we want to try and tap. I think that's our best chance to have someone who will stay and stay with us with the training.
Awesome, awesome information. Thank you so much.
Councilor Reese, Councilor Taylor.
So this person is to directly replace an Aquaterra water guy. Is that what I'm hearing?
We are going to reduce our currently budgeted contracted services in an amount equal to what this will cost us. We still will be using Aquaterra to run our water treatment plant. And so currently we had someone here full-time until we filled the position. Since we filled that position, we've only had to call on Aquaterra 1 week here, 1 week there, when our staff were off for some reason. So since March, we've only had to bring in Aquaterra on our distribution side a few times. So no, so we haven't adjusted our budget down, and that's what we're talking about doing, but we've already cut back on how much we're using them. If that makes if
Right, so basically having this person here cuts out on contracted services to Aquaterra because they don't have to come out as much. They only have to come out for the specialty stuff. Does this person do anything else other than Aquaterra? This person would just be Aquaterra water stuff. Water work?
yes,
Okay.
well, water and sewer.
CEO.
Through the chair and members of council, this is one I'll speak in. I'll highly recommend this one. One of the other things is contracted services, especially in this area, are very expensive versus bringing in-house. And it's really stopgaps while we're short on staff, so we really don't get any further ahead. We're just able to do what the bare minimum, and we are doing the very bare minimum to keep water running. We are not proactive in how we manage our utilities. We're just too short staffed. It appears to me that we run from fire to fire and we just stop whatever the major things are. But we also have to remember that we have hundreds of millions of dollars worth of assets that need to be taken proactively. This is a step in that right direction. It's not going to solve the problem, but over the long term, I think this will be a very wise investment for the town in order to maintain those assets more appropriately versus the way we've been operating right now. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, CEO. Councilor Reese.
Thank you, sir. I would like to move to include full-time utility operator position in the 2024 operational budget.
Councilor Reese, did you want to speak to it?
I think I have. Thank you, sir.
Okay, council, we have a consensus request, comments or questions? Councilor Taylor.
Did you say that you haven't reduced the contracted side of things for this?
I'm saying
That's what I thought I heard
in
you say. 2023,
we have an amount for contracted services for hiring Aquaterra. We're reducing it by
$165,000.
by $165,000 going into the 2024 budget so that we have room to add this person there. But what I'm saying is we've already stopped hiring them because we haven't needed them since March as much. We've brought the person in a couple of times because our team of 2 was down to a team of 1 or none. So we've already dramatically stopped reducing them, but the budget amount in 2023 will be reduced by $165,000 to cover this increase on the wages side.
Well, so the numbers we've seen haven't been reduced in 2024. They have. They have.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Taylor. Councilor Haas.
Yeah, I'll be in favor of this, based on you know, the fact that Aquaterra still brings some value, potentially, but reducing it to 100,000. But the fact that we're investing in an employee in this, critical area. And the fact too, looking at, the comparisons to other, surrounding communities roughly our size, having even more. So I think, you know, it's valuable to bring that. And if I recall, when we first brought on Aquaterra, yeah, having a technician they're hard to come by. So having internally, invested in one of our employees potentially, you know, I think is valuable for our community, and it ensures the water in our community. So I'll be in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council. Seeing nothing further from council, we'll call the question consensus request to include full-time utility operator position in the 2024 budget. Council, all those in favor? It's carried unanimously. If there's nothing further for that, we can move on to water and sewer inventory replenishment.
Yeah, so this is basically, we have done a lot of water and sewer repairs. And we took a lot of parts out of our inventory, and we need money in order to bring our inventory back up. We would also like to be running a slightly bigger inventory so that we have the parts here. There is a number of times where we've had to hot shot parts out of Edmonton because you have equipment waiting and you don't know what you truly need till you opened up the hole. So by having more parts on hand, it has the ability to save money in the future, both in the shipping the parts here and in the equipment waiting on site. So we want to build a decent inventory.
Great, thank you, council. Councilor Haas.
I'm gonna move that we include the water and sewer parts inventory to the 2024 budget. And if I can speak to it real quickly, I mean, that in itself, I think really makes sense, you know, we don't want our contractors working and then standing still, being paid while we're waiting for parts. And it's inevitable that these are gonna be parts we're going to need from time to time. And then when we also look at the history of supply lines and delays of getting goods, not being available down the line, how long do we have to wait? So I think this is a good investment for our community, and it ensures good customer service as well when it comes to our utilities, and any repairs needed, they can be done quickly and efficiently. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Haas. Council, we have a consensus request now. Comments or questions? Councilor Taylor.
Are you sure that these are just the increases? They're not like total amounts? Like these sound like this is to replenish, so what did the budget used to be? And this is the increase. So what did the budget?
It is written in there. So in the write-up, we're proposing in one line item going from 9,900 to 25,000. In a different line item, we're proposing going from 2,168 to 10,000. And in the other line item, we're going from 2,300 to 30,000. So it's those three line items as written in there.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Taylor. Council, any other questions or comments? Nothing further from council, then we will call the question consensus request to include water and sewer inventory replenishment in the 2024 budget. Council, all those in favor? It's carried unanimously. There's nothing further for that one. We could move on to cellular device budget for water operations.
Okay. So later on down, you're going to we're going to talk about asset management, but this is related. Currently, our people working out in the field, only the supervisors and lead hands generally have electronic devices. But we want to get a few more so that we can be capturing information in the field as we get a better GIS and work order tracking system. People having the tools out in the field to capture the data is needed in order to be able to run the system.
Great. Thank you for that. Council, answer questions. Proposed consensus, Councilor Bailey.
So this 4,100 is for, what is it, 3 iPads? Is that what it is?
Yes,
So an iPad costs $1,700.
yeah, I'll let you answer.
Through the chair to council, this operational business case is for the purchase of the new iPads, also including the data plans that comes along with these. Over this past year, we have one old iPad that does have LTE capability, and it has proved invaluable in the field when we're dealing with repairs, to be able to look at the SCADA to see what the pumps are doing, how water's going, and being able to shut things off at a moment's notice off of a tablet interface. Really helped out. It'll make the crews work more efficient in the field. There is potentially the opportunity to put it on a phone. However, the small screen makes it very cumbersome to use and to move through the data. The iPads are really what is necessary.
Councilor Taylor, Councilor Race.
Thank you, sir. Is that tablet similar to what the fire department may be using when they go out on their inspections of buildings? They can just type in all that information and then it goes into a database rather than writing it all night.
Through the chair to all council, I'm not actually familiar with what they use, but I'm assuming it is very similar. But that's the exact intent, is that the work orders would be on the tablet. When the worker completes the task, they can input the data right away as they're finished. And then you have that data forever, and it becomes searchable and usable by other people. There's no longer a question of, did we replace that valve? I can't remember who did it. Like, it just, it will help with those things.
Sorry, and fire chief, if we're not quite there yet, the department, I apologize for using you as my example.
Through the chair, yeah, we do not use a system like that. in the fire department.
One more comment. These iPads will also be used for the purpose of asset management data collection. We've started that process this year. While these iPads will be primarily used by the utilities team, when they're not being used for this purpose, they will be repurposed throughout either public works or parks to collect data in the field to populate our asset management system.
Thank you, Councilor Race. Council. Councilor Haas.
Yeah, based on that, the fact that we're using some pretty old technology. You know, and as you said, the iPad is not just the iPad, but what goes into the iPad to make the system work. So I'm gonna move that we do include the cellular device budget for water operations for those reasons. And it's the efficiencies, customer service, you know, also by the sounds of it, being more on top of it. Any problems arise, they can be dealt with immediately and avoid any catastrophes of any sort. So thank you.
Councilor Haas, council made a consensus request. Are there any comments or questions? No comments or questions from council. We'll call the question. Consensus request to include cellular device budget for water operations in the 2024 budget. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. There's nothing further for that one. We could move on to parts of lift station safety.
So I'm not, if you're familiar with our sewer system, our part of the town, the sewer goes through a lift station, and this lift station has a big concrete basement, if you want to call it, that is a confined space, and our staff need to go into that and clean it twice per year at least. And then we did that lately, and there was some concerns about how we were doing our man lifts and that such a thing. So we had our safety person go there and review it, and we were able to make some adjustments and get the work done. But it was obvious that we need to get some different equipment in order to be able to do this in a more efficient manner and be set up so the workers can do this awful job at least safely.
Thank you for that, Councillor Race and then Councillor Hollis.
Thank you, sir. So you say you do this 2 times a year on one lift station or X number of lift stations?
Twice a year, just at this lift station, and we still had a call out in the middle of the night for having to go and wash the float bulbs off because they were sticking and stuff, even after doing that cleaning.
Okay, so here's my question. So prior to anybody going down into that confined space, what rescue system do you have in place in the event that there is an emergency?
So this is replacing some of that safety. We currently have some safety equipment, and our staff was concerned about it. They had one piece they liked and the other piece they were concerned about, and that's what brought this up, that hey, our equipment's getting old and we need to make sure that if they're doing this job, they're doing it safely. And so that's how it made its way here.
I got another one. It's a fort, sorry,
Put you back in queue.
you betcha.
Something different.
Yep.
Councillor Austin and Councillor Race.
Thank you. I guess my question is, can we rent this equipment from one of our rental places potentially, being as how we only use it twice a year, a $40,000 investment, but is there an opportunity that we could, rent it?
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair to council, a lot of what Brent said here was true. We managed to get through what we had to do. However, there were certain steps being taken that had an emergency taken place, it wouldn't be a simple emergency exit out of this confined space, simply winching somebody out. Imagine the wet well, I guess as my mind here, you're entering from the top, you go down, and then you have to walk away from that opening. If something were to happen, they collapse and we're trying to winch this person out, there's a great potential of actually injuring them, trying to pull them out through where they're actually coming from. There is another opening over here, however, the footing that is required to attach our confined space entry equipment on is missing from there, so it would be, the work would entail pouring a footing and a base for a confined space entry arm to attach to, so we would be able to have essentially two holes that we would be able to pull our employees out of. Really, it comes down to, are we calling emergency services to retrieve somebody from this wet well in the event of an emergency, or can we do it ourselves safely?
So,
To answer your question,
yeah,
some of this equipment is an install.
Okay.
Some of this equipment is portable equipment that potentially you could rent, but a large part of the cost is actually installed equipment into the facility.
okay. I appreciate the showing how it works, but thank you for that answer, because I guess in my mind, it was just a unit you stick there and pull you out, but obviously part of it needs to be installed, so, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross, Councillor Race.
So it's gonna be a fixed system then? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Council. Councillor Taylor.
So something happens to somebody and you say we're gonna take them out ourselves. Aren't you gonna like automatically call the fire department? Like something happens to somebody, you call emergency services, you need help.
Through the chair to council, yes, if there was a severe emergency, we would be calling emergency services no matter what, but those minutes there, like in those. In a confined space with potentially hazardous gases are very precious. It's a matter of retrieving a body or retrieving a person.
So this stuff allows you to get that person out, the two people, somebody would be working with somebody and then he puts on a mask and he comes in or.
Yes, the way that it's been done up until now is that they would essentially go down the hole. And they would actually unbuckle themselves from the retrieval system to perform the work there. Because it would be that cumbersome to try to be tied to the retrieval system and walking that far away from the hole. It's cumbersome and makes the procedures very difficult, and in the past they were unsafe practices that have been followed, and we're trying to keep our employees safe.
Yeah. And what now they don't have to unbuckle.
With the new equipment, they wouldn't. No.
Chief, did you want to add something?
If I may, Mr. Chair, the equipment that's being requested here is utilized in the everyday work processes when they're working in the lift station to lower people into that vault, to raise them back out again, not just people, but equipment. So that equipment needs to be in place to perform those functions safely and efficiently. In the event of an emergency, yes, the fire department would be called. And yes, we do have additional equipment that can be used to retrieve somebody from that type of situation. If the other system that's in place fails us, or if it has to be located in a different location, that we can have to move a fixed system there. So that this system that's being requested here, if I'm correct, that would be there at the plant at all times and utilized for going in and out of that vault safely.
Thank you for that, Chief. Councilor Ross.
Yeah, just a thought, I mean. But I hear it's operational, but I also hearing a case possibly for capital. That it fall under the capital, because it's a structure that we have to. That is gonna be there, it's gonna be just for that. So I guess I know it's operational, we're gonna be using it, but. Could it fall under capital budget instead of under taxation under the operational budget?
Administration.
You want to take that one, Alicia?
Certainly through the chair. It very well could be. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's the same funding source, whether it be classified as capital and done through reserves, or we apply for MSI funding or any other allocation grants that we have available. So we certainly could look at that. I'm not familiar with what the individual components are. I'm going to assume from reading the case study that they would fall over the $5,000 threshold, which is an accounting practice for. So we could certainly look at this and reclassify it if that is the will of council for moving it forward in the budget process.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you, Councilor Ross. Councilor Taylor.
The same funding source? You elaborate on that?
Through the chair to all of council, simply meaning that municipalities have essentially four means of revenue and user fees, grants, taxation, and reserves. Reserves are saved from the taxation amount. So that was simply what I meant is we do have a limited amount of funding stream. So whether we're funding the operational budget or the capital budget, we're tapping into the same resources.
Right, okay.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Race.
Thank you. Just a quick question. So in our notes of saying that at least twice a year, you have to go down to clean. But in listening to Mac, there might be other opportunities where you have to visit that lift station to move something. So it's not just twice a year. Or is it?
It's a made through the chair of council. It is we do major cleaning twice a year. The staff go in that facility and do checks and make sure the equipment's running and all those good things a lot more frequently than that. I'm not sure beyond the cleanings, how often they're having to go down inside that hole. That's always a two-person job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reese, Councillor Haas.
Yeah, based on what I've heard and based on the fact that, you know, this is. Potentially a life or death situation, it's not a great place to go down and we want to get out of there as quickly as we have to, so. The fact that we don't have a system that is. Currently, and it's not, there's not a system in place that ensures the safety as much as it could. So I'm gonna move that we seek consensus to move this Hardesty lift station safety into the 2024 budget. And if I may, just to add it possibly, but conversation at that time to see whether it goes through operational, if it goes through capital, understanding comes from all the same place, but you know, maybe that might be something that takes the whatever 0.6% possibly, you know, off our taxation. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, we have a consensus request now. Any comments or questions? Councillor Reese.
Thank you, sir. I'll certainly support that. A motion anytime, always. Are people going home safe is such a priority. So I'll support them.
Councillor Reese, council. Okay, seeing no further comments or questions from council. We would call to question the consensus request to include Hardesty lift station safety in the 2024 budget. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. There's nothing further on that one. We could move on to garbage bin replacement.
Okay, so I think council's well aware of the garbage collection service that the town provides. I can tell you I've been working on bringing some information to council, and so I have looked at this area fairly closely, and I can tell you that we this is a good news place. It's one of the few places in the budget where our income exceeds our expenses. We're actually doing better than breaking even when it comes to our garbage collection service. And so that report will be coming to council. But I thought that was important to tell you as a lead into this. So as we changed the style of bins, which I understand was a tough adjustment for the town, we currently don't have sufficient budgets to replace bins when they're damaged, burnt up, that sort of thing, or when we get requests for new bins, we don't have enough bins to provide to new requests. And so we thought it would be prudent to have basically be replacing our bins on an ongoing basis as they're wrecked, destroyed, hit their end of life, the bottom rusts out of them, those kind of things. So instead of doing a big capital purchase every 15 to 20 years, we felt that what we should be doing is replacing the bins by budgeting 5% of our total inventory of bins replaced on an ongoing basis, which would both fund bin replacements and new requests.
Thank you. Council. Taylor.
Yeah, no, all reasonable. My only concern here is that, you know, we're a lot of the way through the list and we've said yes to so many things that we're basically still had a tax rate increase that's just so incredibly high that it's not going to be acceptable to the people that I talk to for taxes. So unless we can reduce something with the rest of the list, we got to do a lot of work after we leave this room. So is there any chance that we could lower this number at all?
Through the chair to all of you, yes, this like other items is a place where council could use their discretion. We came up with the value of 50,000 by taking 5% of our inventory. You know, setting it at 2.5% instead of 5% would certainly still be better than we are. So
But I have a follow-up question to Councillor Taylor's question. It's regarding the operational business cases as a whole. The lease of fleet enterprise fleet management is listed on that list. And it's showing a tax rate impact of 1.67%. That's actually not coming forward until 2025, is that correct?
That is correct. That will be adjusted.
So that's a $256,000 reduction right there, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah,
Plus
calculated all that in.
Plus the other ones that are being counted too.
So factor that in.
Did you have a follow-up, Councillor Taylor? Sorry.
No, may I make a consensus?
Sure. Yep.
I'd like to seek consensus to move this forward into the 2024 budget at $25,000. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Did you want to speak here, Councillor Taylor?
No, I think I articulated my concerns.
Okay, council, we have our consensus request. Are there any comments or questions? I guess I would have a question. Is $25,000 adequate to service the demand for additional bins and replacement bins?
Through the chair to all of council, when we put forward 5%, we thought that was a good management technique for a long-term decision. At 2.5%, I think that will work for 2024. You may see us come back and ask it again in 2025 or 2026, because right now a lot of our bins are new. We did lose a couple this year to a couple of incidents, and we did have some new requests come in, and we had to exceed our current budget this year and order some bins because we couldn't really be in a position to tell people, no, you can't have a bin. But so that being said, the inventory is fairly new at the moment. If we're not replacing 5% per year, the inventory could start to decline and we might have to have more money down the road, but we could make do with 2024.
Thank you. Council, comments or questions? Seeing no further comments or questions from council, we'd like to call the consensus request question to include garbage bin replacement at a value of $25,000. Council, all those in favor? That was carried unanimously. There's nothing further on that one, and we could move on to take it or leave it, Sharon.
Yeah, and I'm going to let Debbie speak to this one.
Yeah, sort of bad over there. Like the council, this matters before you because this came in as a result of the council. So an initiative of last year that happened this year. It's called take it or leave it. So you have two choices tonight: you take it or you. Without I think it's important firstly to bring council up to speed. So what occurred this year with the take it or leave it initiative? So it was meant to be a 90-day pilot project. And so it was. We started out looking at volunteers that would help staff this and manage it. The start of this was we got one volunteer after significant outreach to the community. We then decided we will delay it by a week or two and put out the communication again. We then got a second volunteer and then we started the program. And then we had to alter the times in terms of how we operate because the capacity was quite there. We didn't know what the activity would be. Somewhat sort of 20% into the program, we got 2 additional volunteers that came. And those were the 4 that continued and finished the program as of August the 12th. These are very passionate individuals that would love to see this program go ahead again. However, there were lessons learned as well. And there were lessons to be learned out of this 90-day project. And some of them include the volunteer shortage and the lack thereof. Now, this could be due to the time of the year that we undertook this project. Was high summer, was after COVID, and
people were trying to take time off in summer. Publications were a little bit of a challenge. When I say a challenge, we could have done better, perhaps more Facebook posts, better signage to the location. Some of the things that we've heard is that people didn't know how to access the location. The orientation of the trailer was the challenge we've heard from the, and then of course, what type of items can we accept? So what we did was initially we did have a list of items that we thought is bigger, such as wood, window frames, small tools. But as the program evolved, people started bringing sofas, wanted to, closets, all these type of things. So we had a little bit of a challenge to try and help our volunteers. Fact that lubricants arrived, cement powder arrived, so we had to try and say, okay, so we corralled the volunteers into this room, and we just asked them to please just adhere to some of the things that could be an environmental issue. However, overall, they took in about 6,135 pounds. That equates to about 2,700 kilograms, which is diverted from the landfill. So that's a good news story. I will add that there were some leftover items. Now we didn't get to weigh them. That was not into the tune of 600 pounds. It's probably around, say, 100 pounds, give or take. That was just because we closed up. We probably could have redirected that as well. So the budget that council allowed us to operate that 3 months was 12,500. That included trailer rental, that included staff time, shelving, to mention but a few. There's a slight balance. We didn't overextend ourselves. I think if we do the math, we probably have just about $2,000 still available that we did not spend. So we came in under budget, so that's a good thing. However, if we want to continue with this, we have to, there were some complaints about it was too hot in the trailer. We didn't have access to power. We then had to run a power cord, which wasn't the best from a safety perspective. We had to make do, we had to get fans purchased and stuff like that. So these were some of the things. So what did my colleague Debbie and I have done? We put together some costs for you. We started with the highest cost being $36,000. That means it's a building that we will acquire. We will not rent the trailer. Renting a trailer is about $945 per month. That doesn't mean that same trailer will be available to us. So we did not include that up in the equation. So the 36,000 is the highest cost we will see per annum. But I wanted to pause just here for a moment. We went a step further to help council make this decision tonight, well, not decision, but to see where it lands. Debbie has gone to various communities and done extensive research on it. So I want to give her the floor, just maybe walk you through that, and then we'll open the floor up for questions.
So part of our establishing of the pilot is we talked to NeighborLink, we talked to the share shop. We wanted to make sure that what we were accepting for items wasn't going to conflict with anything that they were accepting, because we don't want to be competing with local resources already. So we wanted to make sure that was that we were thinking about that when we selected the items. As we started to receive items and we got some of the bigger items that NeighborLink typically deals with, the volunteers were reaching out to NeighborLink. They reached out to Share Shop because we were at capacity. They were also at capacity and said we can't come get it or we won't be able to come get it. So just so you know that those partnerships were in place and a consideration of the pilot. Doing some of the research, reaching out to communities, I reached out to 7 different organizations to talk about what their programs were, and they had various levels of success. Strathcona County has one of the most successful take it or leave it facilities. It's called the Hodgepodge Lodge. And there's a whole bunch of information about that anyway. What they do is they've got one staff person organizing it, but she literally has 40 committed volunteers and 72 at capacity, and she spends most of her time scheduling 60 different schedules to facilitate that. They did put out an RFP and an RFQ trying to get a new building because they were operating out of a CCAN, and that is to the tune of $275,000 that their council has approved for their new building. So they ended up allocating a builder. They used recyclable material, and they still spent $275,000. So they still have a really great example of a take it or leave it, but it's now 1,500 square feet. But they do sell some of their stuff as well, and as a bonus, they give their volunteers a little bit of money every year just for all their commitment. Leduc Regional Landfill Public Drop-Off Center, I spoke to a fellow by the name of Nathan there. They started with a contractor that managed it outside their landfill type activity. And the contractor said, it's causing congestion at the traffic site. there's too much money invested in their time trying to manage the site and get rid of things, and so the contractor said, we're not gonna do it anymore. So they went back to the drawing board and they considered two different kinds of charities. They looked at Habitat for Humanity and Goodwill Industries to look at, to try to solve their problem. And what they ended up doing was they chose one of those parties to partner up with, and now that municipality doesn't pay for any of those services. It is completely taken over by Goodwill Industries. And the reason they chose them was that now they've got a 90% diversion rate. They can refurbish things and actually polish them up and send them out. They can receive things and those things get distributed and all those funds stay within the community. I talked to Goodwill Industries as well, just about their operation and how they work, and I won't get into detail, but I do have some of that information. I reached out to the city of St. Albert, who had a single day for a take it or leave it in June. And what they did was they positioned it in the rec center parking lot, where they'd have one day for the community. They staffed it 100%. And had people coming and picking up and dropping off. And in the words of the lady I spoke to, it was chaos. A lot of fun, but a lot of chaos and a high cost because they were staffing it with full-time staff and it was overtime on weekends, etc. Their councils abolished that as 2021. However, they do recognize the importance of reuse and recycling, and they have allocated funding now for a building, but they're still working out how they're going to deliver the program. West Yellowhead Regional Landfill, we sat with the landfill manager out of the Edson office, talked to him, and he supports the idea of reuse and recycling, but because of the congestion in the landfill that we currently have, he's trying to reorganize the landfill and provide some space within the landfill just for landfill business in general. And so until that gets done, I couldn't see a spot, an allocated spot for a take it or leave it. But they do currently recycle electronics, paint, mattresses, cardboard, compost, and metal. So there is a fair amount of recycling going on there. I reached out, Winston and I both met with Edson Recycling back in 2022, went on a site tour and got sort of the story about how the Edson Recycling got started. And now they are up to charging for $5 a bag just to recoup some of the funds that they're putting into their program. Parkland County I reached out to as well, and they have a take it or leave it very sort of loosely managed at their transfer stations as well. So those are just some of the communities that I reached out to, and they've got a lot of different kind of programs going. Some of the same limitations as what we were finding is a volunteer base is a challenge. How do you control what's coming in and out? And then what do you do with the stuff that doesn't move? Somebody's got to be responsible for that.
Just to conclude, thanks Debbie for that. So what we've done is we've looked at if the town with its own resources undertake it plus getting a building, what that cost would be, or we could do it unattended, or we could get a management contract in place with somebody managing it, such as maybe it's in recycling. That's already at Rowan doing some work for us. That's one option. But to give council the bigger picture, this is not for 3 months. This cost is for 6 months. So we're doubling. So if you look at it, you may say, okay, well, we're tripling the cost to 36,000. We're at 12.5 right now. This is for 6 months. And this will help us to get through the ebbs and flows. There were people that said, we wish our hours were longer. There were people that said, we wish you were open on this day. And so this will accommodate that. But at the end of the day, it's council's decision. It's not cheap, but it does show leadership on the side of council that universities are wanting to divert things, recycle, and it's a good community initiative. And I learned a lot through meeting a lot of people through this too. So over to council.
Thank you. And then Councilor Haas and then myself.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to Winston and Debbie. I just have one quick question about the poundage. I need to understand. So we took in approximately 6,135 pounds. Does that include what went out?
Yes.
Okay.
That was weighed out.
So
that's
so
what
the
we-
6,000 was weighed out.
That's the weight out, yes.
How much came in?
They didn't weigh it on the way in, they weighed it on the way out. And
Okay,
we've got the daily records, but it is on a way out.
Okay.
Basis.
and did we get rid of what we brought in? Or is we got a trailer full of stuff?
We had some remains
Okay.
when we shut the program down on August the 12th.
Mhm.
And that, in my view, wasn't truckloads. There wasn't much left. Actually, I toured the trailer myself. There were things left like light bulbs, fittings, electrical fittings,
very minute pieces of wood. And actually some people went in there and removed some of it. I was one of them to reuse them.
Okay,
And that wasn't accounted for.
good, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Sorry, one of the things that I didn't notice in going through this is that this is only a 6-month program. Can I ask why this is a 6-month program rather than a full year?
Yeah, part of the costing was just for a steel building or a wood building that's not insulated, not prepared to have it, heated with all full utilities. That was why we proposed it as seasonal.
Okay, so just to clarify then, this is only gonna be offered season, basically spring, summer, fall,
Yes,
like early,
April 1st to
late spring, summer, early fall.
April 1st to the end of September.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Councillor Taylor?
Are these all annual costs? We gotta do this year after year?
Anyway, costs.
Yeah, so we're going like 23 to 34,000 dollars per year. And then the year after that, it'll be that much, and then the year after that, it'll be that much.
Just a point of clarification, the pricing that we included in the business case is to purchase a building, so we would only do that once. So the cost of the building is only a one-time for this year, should it go forward for 2024, and then it would just be whether we decide that we're going to manage it with town, where we just go clean it out, or it's managed with a contractor to move it forward with your annual cost. So it would only be the one time for the building.
Right, so the annual costs would then be, if you take off 12,000 roughly, on any of these, it would go from 22,000 a year to 11,000 per year for 6 months. For the costs.
Because shelving as well as a one-time cost. It's not.
May I ask more?
Is it a follow-up or?
No, it's a completely different question.
Councillor Reese, then I can put you back in.
Okay.
Councillor Reese?
Thank you, sir. I'm glad you brought up that shelving. The Canadian Tire had gave us a whole bunch of shelving, like 40 feet, 2-tiered. Is that not shelving we could do once again?
Through the chair to council the race. Unfortunately, we couldn't salvage more than, I think, 70% of it. And maybe it's even less than that. That's not how it works. They advised me because just the way the shelving was configured. So we really can. So that's why you'll see in our costing, we've allowed for actually total new shelving. And also depends on the building configuration. It's either steel or metal or wood. We probably can't use some of that shelving, but we try to salvage as much as we could.
Oh, okay. I'll go back and queue. I've got a few more.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Reese. Councillor Taylor? And then Councillor Reese?
Yeah, we did this year, and it looks like it cost us just over $4 a kilogram to recycle something. This strikes me as expensive. Is that expensive recycling? Like I can go buy a chicken at Safeway for less than that, right? And it's not any more to recycle? Is this responsible use of money to spend that much recycling? Oh, how's that fit? I guess the question is, how does that fit with other recycling budgets? It just seems high.
For us, it's a startup cost included. So, when we started this, we had an idea what we want to achieve. But when we really hit the road and the reality of it, we understood that there is much more to it. So, the cost of having to take it to the landfill, if you add all of that into your $4, yes, you're right, it's not the cheapest, but what it does, it shows leadership as well, that you're on the trajectory to a holistic, sustainable approach to diversion, preventing the landfill from getting full. Now, I know it's not dollar for dollar, so I would not disagree with you, it's not cheap to start it with, but it shows leadership in terms of your social responsibility as a government agency, as a municipality, that you take recycling, reuse, repurposing serious.
Yeah, I'd just like to be able to call myself a leader at a lower price, that's all.
But we'll like to share that with you in the next couple of years that we can. But right now, we're in the startup phase, the lowest cost.
Councillor Taylor, Councillor Reese, and then Councillor Ross.
Thank you, sir. So I probably have a statement and a question, but I'll tell you, being there the odd time volunteering and seeing young people come in, just starting out, being able to pick up lamps, a microwave, bowls, just how happy these people were that, they were getting something very affordable. And the number of people who wanted to pay was just incredible. And, we're saying there's no money, passing hands here. I wanna know. They did keep track of the number of visitors. People who came. Do you guys have that number?
You know, we could get that for you next time, Councillor. But I know that there were some people that came back
Yes.
that really loved it and the thing. I mean, I'll share with council, I'm not trying to put a problem to sell this opportunity. Just want to let you know what the community's uptake to it was. There was a young lady that came in as an inspiring artist. There was a easel on the one side that came in 5 minutes ago. And she came and said, that's just what I needed, but I couldn't afford to buy it. And so that helped her to get onto to aspire and improve our artistic side of her life. And so that's the good news story in my view. It's not enough to say, okay, it's about $76,000 expenditure, but this is how the community has gotten involved and gotten interested.
Thank you, Councillor Reese, Councillor Haas, and then Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'm just gonna make some comments on the recommendations, just where I'm at with it. I definitely wouldn't be for unintended, to be honest, because I think the staffing cost alone, getting rid of the stuff that doesn't fit there, because when there's nobody there, people might just drop things off and it just would, I think that 9,000 would be a lot more personally. The other thing, I love the volunteers, but sustainability with volunteers for 6 months, I think would be it would be tough on them, especially with the limited number we have. So for me, if we're gonna move forward with this, it would be with a contracting a third party, theoretically, adding that into the recycling organization, because you know, I think that will also benefit the program with what's coming in, what's going out, and you know, and I think it would be worth the cost of it personally, if we go forward with it, and of course with the building. I like the numbers for the building though, that's fairly cheap, so that's just probably some sticks and some plywood and we're good, so, and a foundation, right? So, but that's where I'm at with this, for the rest of the council and my thoughts on it. I think it is a reasonable project. I think it is an important thing. We are diverting things from our landfill, which we already know that landfill, you know, is filling up. We just had to spend millions of dollars on a new hole for more garbage, and the less we put in there, the less it fills up and we don't have to invest again. So yeah, I'm not ready for consensus yet. I want to hear from the rest of council, but that's where I'm at. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Haas, Councillor Taylor. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Just wanted to respond to Councilor Haas's comments. So the building was priced out with the steel building.
Okay.
The wood buildings were much higher in price and they're not finished.
Right.
And so then it would require more investment yet, but also with the idea that if perhaps we ran it for one more year and decided not to move forward with it, that we could repurpose that building somewhere else that might be more effective for one of our other purposes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Haas, Councillor Taylor.
You have a question, maybe I have two. Joanne was saying that they were taking mics, microwaves and bowls. I thought you said there was gonna be no repetition between what the other agencies were taking. How can they be doing that? And you say there's no repetition. Why do we have dueling facilities that we're gonna be spending taxpayer money on if we're gonna have repetition like this?
Through the chair, thank you for the question, Councillor Taylor. So we had multiple meetings with the volunteers about the list of what was acceptable, because when we established the program with the list of acceptable items, it didn't have anything that overlapped with the other organizations. And when those things started to come in, they did reach out to the other organizations saying, we've got this, do you want it? Because this falls into what you guys usually take. And both other facilities were at their capacity and said, no, you guys keep it, get rid of it if you can. So there was overlap at the end.
Right, so the need for those things was already getting met at another facility. So we're just, okay, sounds like duplication. My question, could I?
I have Councillor Reese and Councillor Haas.
I can wait, that's fine.
Okay, so Reese, Councillor Haas, and then Councillor Taylor.
I do have to say that the share shop was bringing things to the take it or leave it. So my question is, would the building be inside the recycling compound?
Through the chair to Councilor Reese. We did talk about that. We've got some pricing in there for fencing in the case that we do include it. I think that's one of the things that administration we would need to sort out. So right now, we could put it outside in the same location with similar fencing, or we could extend the fence that the road recycle is going to be. That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Haas and then Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, just two things, I guess two things. One, I guess as long as we know that I don't see it as a duplication, because if they're at capacity, they cannot put it into their stores, then it either goes into the dump or it gets sent off to Edmonton or someplace else. So at least we're keeping that in our community for people in our community that have needs. So as long as it's there, they go there, and if it doesn't come, I'd rather them say, you know, have this stuff than people bringing it. So, and I think that would be avoided with that possible third party personally. But the other thing I was just noticing or thinking too is you mentioned that some people wanted to pay. I think that having a donation would also be a reasonable, you know, just have a donation, because I think some people do appreciate what they get and they want to give back to it. So, and that could be, you know, towards whatever, you know, the program itself. So I don't think we should be sending them away without, because I think sometimes that makes them just feel as good and valuable as well, right? And not just taking. So those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Councillor Haas, Councillor Taylor.
I thought that this thing was gonna be a community service run by volunteers. Gonna be low cost. It wasn't gonna be just another service the town was gonna provide and throw tax dollars into it. So it's morphing into something that I didn't think it was when it was first presented. And regarding the option I like, I don't see it, and that's where you extend the fence. And maybe we pay 8,000 for the building, a little for the foundation. And then the person that works within the fence helps manage it, and it's managed by volunteers. If this is truly a community thing and the community wants to get involved, then they should be a nonprofit that can run it. But it sounds like we are volunteer challenged with this, and therefore we don't quite have the community support to run it. But why can't we put it in the fence and just have that person that's already in the fence sort of oversee it, whatever that person's called, the recycling person there, and manage it that way with no annual management costs, and have the volunteers, if this is truly a community project, the volunteers run.
Through the chair to Councilor Taylor, we did discuss that, and that is in the fees that you're seeing for the 20,000 a year. That includes the pricing option to have that attendant that's already at the roll and recycle look after that facility with also in combination with the volunteers. However many we get or the same, aside from the volunteers, that's included in the third party rate that you're seeing. It's an annual fee.
How much is that?
20,000.
Well, and then so but we're that $20,000 one here that I see is 23,000, and is that the $9,000 per year for staff? I'm not seeing that option here. I can't see it.
Sorry, Councilor Taylor. So when you're looking at the option, scenario 3 or 4, or sorry, no, my apologies, for scenario 1 or 2, that's the third party management, and that $20,000 MGT at the back end is the management fee for those options with a third party providing that management oversight. And so that's for them to pay that attendant. Actually, an additional attendant just for 4 hours twice a week to facilitate that facility with manpower from volunteers included, and that's $20,000.
20,000 here.
Yes,
Thought it.
that's correct.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Haas.
Yeah, and I think another thing that, and I'm only assuming, but this was the first time we did it, and sometimes volunteers don't necessarily pull the trigger to see until they see it's an actual thing gonna happen. So my guess would be we would see an uptake, maybe not on consistent, but from time to time. But I also see the opportunity here if we've got it, because I know that the chair shop in the past have used groups in the community to come and volunteer their time in the facility, and they got hours towards their group and things like that. So, you know, so I think there's an opportunity to bolster that opportunity and to show that we are committed to this. It's not just a one-off thing. And I think we get more. And the fact that we do have some management there helping volunteers and managing them, I think is beneficial as well. We're not just relying solely on volunteers to do that, since that's a lot for them to ask. And plus, then they don't necessarily stay with it. So, thank you.
Wait, Mr. Russo had the comment too.
Sure, thanks. This is just more fulfilling and more information and background for council. Basically, the scenario one, this, we put it in a very sort of chronological order so you can see what your options are. But your upfront cost, of course, will include your building, your foundation, your shelving, and fence. The next year, that would drop to zero, and then you would have your management cost of 20,000. If you have it run by the current not-for-profit, they also have access to different granting opportunities. And so one of the things that we're still in exploration mode, you're not going to get a grant simply for take it or leave it, but you will get a grant that will overarch and help us to take 30 years, we call it in short, to be able to be run through this organization that's a not-for-profit. So hence that one was put first, though it's a high ticket item to start with, but you'll have that drop down of about 14,000 and more. Should we get a grant that could complement that 20,000 to become like their 5,000, or the council could pay at any given time.
Through the chair, just in response to Councilor Hawes as well. When I spoke to the Hodgepodge Lodge, they're doing exactly what you're talking about. So they do grade 4 tours through the facility, what helps them generate money. They do craft days. They've got all sorts of different activities there that the public can participate in, which helps them get rid of things, but also just to bring up some funding as well to supply some of their other needs that they have for the facility. So those all could be considerations moving forward for sure. Yeah.
That's the race.
Thank you, sir. I would like to move that the take it or leave it sharing facility is included in the 2024 operating budget. And sorry, I should have added scenario 2 as our option choice.
Councilor Race, do you want to speak to it?
I do. You know what? Take it or leave it was just not for people who didn't have a lot of money. I saw all demographics coming into that building. And we got a lot of people in town who are desperately in need. We kind of fulfilled the need for everybody. So, but I want to thank you guys for your good work on that too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Race. Council, we do have a consensus request now. Councilor Haas.
Yeah, I appreciate the consensus. My question originally was gonna be, are we looking to just put this forward and then, or is it a pick an option, and Councilor Race had done that already. So yeah, I will support this at this time. And I agree with scenario number 2. I mean, for an extra $2,000, I'm assuming we get a little bit more square footage, can take more in. But the fact too that, like you said, is if something happens, this isn't working, there's a building we can repurpose someplace else as well. So that's a plus for me. So yeah, I'll support the consensus. Thank you.
Councilor Haas, Councilor Taylor.
Yeah, I don't support it. Maybe did a trial, it was an unsuccessful trial, it was a low number of volunteers, it was high costs. There's good alternatives to doing this. To pay these kind of costs, just to be able to say that we're achieving these lofty goals is just too expensive. I was thinking that if this went ahead, it wouldn't be at this kind of extreme cost. To me, you just can't justify achieving those kind of goals at this kind of cost with these kind of resources. It's counterproductive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Taylor. Councilor Race.
Thank you, sir. I don't know who to ask this to, but what does a cell cost? You know, if we're starting little, we kept 6,000 pounds out this year. Maybe next year we'll keep 15,000 pounds out. Stuff that would initially go to the dump. So
To administration.
Through the chair, a landfill settlement.
Yes,
I believe we paid, it's 6 to 7 million. For an additional cell, that was a big cost, 6 to 7 million.
so I go little by little, eventually, we're gonna save some money on that stuff. Might take us a little while, but we're saving money there.
Through the chair of the council, sorry, wait.
No, no, that's-
Our tipping fees, I think are supposed to be reflective of the costs. And currently they're $100 a ton for what we're paying to get rid of garbage. So that tells you
$2 a kilogram. Thank you for making.
Sorry, I
my
need
point.
some clarification on that. $100 a ton is tipping fees at the landfill.
Yeah, I think so.
Clarification.
Yeah. So how much per kilogram? A ton is 2,000 kilograms,
No, thousand kilogram, so it's $1.
$1 a kilogram,
Yes,
and that's reflective of the cost that Joanne's talking about. Okay, perfect. And we're doing this for $4 a kilogram,
Yeah.
4 times the cost.
yes.
Thank you for making my point.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Haas, did I see you?
Yeah,
put your hand up?
yeah.
Okay, I had myself first.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to make sure. So my question is a little bit along those lines, and I don't know if there's anybody here today that can answer, but what's the weight of, like, how much solid waste goes into the landfill in a day? Or a year, a month, whatever.
Through the chair to council, I recently did some of these analyses, to compare what we're paying for recycling versus landfilling, and on average, the town is, bringing 600 to 800 tons of garbage to landfill per month.
Per month. Okay. I'm good for now. Councillor Haas.
Yeah, I'm good too. Thank you.
Okay. Council, is there anything further? Okay, seeing nothing further, I didn't have time to punch the numbers in, but 2.3 tons diverted at a cost of $12,500, not including any labor. For a 3-month pilot program, and if you double that to 6 months with labor, even if you take the cost of building and shelving everything out, it's $20,000 a year. And we're gonna divert 6 tons of waste. That's a percent of what goes into the landfill every month. I think the cost is too high, and what we're diverting isn't, for me, not worth the cost to spend taxpayers' money to do it. So unfortunately, I can't support the consensus request. Thank you. Councillor Reese.
Thank you, sir. I gotta tell you, it was our first kick at the cat, first time we did it. And no offense, but advertising was poor. A lot of people didn't know what was happening, didn't know where to go, didn't know where to park. It was our first time. So I really encourage everybody to give this a second look. At least, and do better communication, do better advertising. I would hate to see this forward. I truly would.
Thank you, Councillor Reese. Council. Okay, there's nothing further from council then. We do have a direction request to include take it or leave it sharing facilities scenario 2 in the 2024 budget. Council, all those in favor? And opposed? And that's defeated 3-1 with Councillor Reese in favor. That brings us to off-site levies update. Mr. Chair. Sorry.
Yeah, if I may.
Yeah.
Good. You know, I appreciate, I did say I was going to vote in favor, and I,
Well, yeah,
do you
I'm
mind?
sorry. We didn't actually give any consensus direction to
Oh, right.
administration on this.
Right,
That was defeated, but we didn't give any direction.
yeah.
My apologies. Sorry. Did you want to speak still, Councillor?
Yeah.
Haas?
I think that the pilot project, I mean, I worry that the word unsuccessful, I think it had some success. It was a short program, we did take some in, it did show some interest in the community, so I'm hoping that with this not going forward, maybe some other options. Potentially, you know, I kind of like the idea of the parking lot thing, to be honest with you, if a group or few groups got together and brought that in and did something like that, but to try to continue and see if we can get some more interest in this type of repurposing. So that maybe we can relook at this in the future, and it might cost, you know, the taxpayers well for it, so. But on that note, I'm gonna have to say that I'm gonna move to remove this from the 2024. And hoping that we have some other options in the future, so.
Thank you for that, Councillor Haas. So council, we do have a consensus request. Any comments or questions? Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, I'll vote to remove it too. And not that I'm against it, I'm just, there's gotta be a lower cost way of doing this. I mean, it could be a good idea if you could get the costs down, but this is just not. Sustainable under any sort of objective measure. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. I'd speak to it too. I'm in favor of removing it, but I'm certainly open to looking at options, and if there was a scenario where a local nonprofit wanted to take this over and manage it with volunteer labor, something like that, I very likely be convinced to put some capital dollars towards it, perhaps the building, provide that. But that's as Councillor Haas said, maybe that's a conversation for a future date. For me, it's just not viable for the town to manage this based on what it's producing. Mr. Russo?
Yeah, thank you, sir. Chair. I just want to mention that though we ran through it very quickly about what other communities are doing, that counties are basically getting into this. Urban municipalities have actually retracted from doing this because of the cost implication. So I'm not trying to contradict what I share with council. My job was to share with you what the actual cost is, and then you take it or you leave it, basically. But if you look at the other side of it, is that what are the options that we have to be good stewards of recycling, repurposing, and reusing? We could come back to council in Q1 and look at options. There's many options that Ms. Webb and I have looked at that was maybe not fitting to talk about here tonight, but we'd be happy to bring you back some options during a committee of the whole meeting very early in the next year. And then we could look at how we could further enhance our community's ability to still engage our volunteers, because we don't want to burst that bubble of people that is really interested. But